Hello, how y'all doing? Welcome to Bunko's Junk Science and Fringe Hangout. Our subject tonight, will be alternative energies and additives. We have our wonderful panel tonight, Jeff Keller, Shar Rome Beans, and Pyongyang. We're going to start off tonight with a case that has piqued our interest that we're talking about in the warm-up. And let me, without no further ado, bring in Pyong. Please tell us about the McDonald's hot coffee case, please.
I would love to.
Thank you.
No, man. That's one case that there is a tremendous amount of misinformation about, and one of the reasons why there's a tremendous amount of misinformation is because of business interest groups who have promulgated these ideas about limiting the liability of companies and business entities. That's really what it comes back to. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is big into that. When Bush was president, Karl Rove was actually on the payroll for the Chamber of Commerce. And you heard Bush in his speeches say things like jackpot juries, make comments about limiting liability. And I believe all of that was because of the influence of Karl Rove. Anyway, about the McDonald's case, a lot of people, when we were in the warm up, like you said, and we were talking about it, a lot of people think, the old woman, she foolishly burned herself and then she sued McDonald's and got $2 million. That's not what happened. She went through the drive-through with her. I think her daughter was driving, and some of the facts of this case, it's been a while since I've dealt with it, but so I might get a couple things wrong, but nothing important. So I think her daughter was driving. They went through the drive-through. They pulled into a parking space, and she opened the coffee up to put cream in it.
Right. And
she was an older lady, and she had problems with mobility. So she spilled the coffee on herself. She admitted that, and she actually, because of the issues with her mobility, she sat in this hot coffee for some time before her daughter was able to get her out of the car.
Right.
When they got her out of the car, she had suffered some pretty severe burns, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that she was old and her skin was kind of delicate. But just like Shar said, she had to get several skin grafts, and she had these third-degree burns on the bottom of her thighs.
Multiple.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was pretty horrendous stuff. I mean, it looked pretty bad. And ultimately, that damage never truly healed. And because of the media sensation about the case, not only did she probably have an early death because of this, but she was also ridiculed. And
Yeah.
when she initially contacted McDonald's, she didn't contact a lawyer first. She contacted McDonald's, and she said, "Look, I just want you to pay what won't be covered by my insurance." Okay?
Right.
And McDonald's said, "Go fuck yourself." So then she contacted an attorney. Now,
literally, that's what they somebody.
Figuratively.
A spokesman? Okay. Just to be clear. Okay.
So she went to an attorney, and the attorney started doing research, subpoenaed some information from McDonald's during discovery, and found that McDonald's had on record more than 2,000 causes of action against them for damages because of their hot coffee. So they knew it was hot, but they knew not only that it was hot, but that it was doing damage to people. But they stubbornly, who knows why they did it? Maybe they had some old timer on the board who was like, "I love hot coffee."
But just to interject,
These pussy faggots, they ain't gonna keep me from my hot coffee.
one thing to interject, Pyong, their coffee was extremely hot.
It was. You could peel paint with that shit.
I know. I mean, there's no reason for coffee to be this hot. Anyway, continue, Pyong.
I mean, it was hot. You know what I'm saying? If it was hot enough to burn people, it's fucking hot. But anyway, so they had knowledge that it was hot. They acknowledged that it was actually doing damage to
Damage.
people, and they made a conscious decision not to change their
Any-
corporate policy across all of their McDonald's, saying how hot the coffee was supposed to be. And they said things like, well, you know, that their customers liked it or whatever. Who knows? I don't know why they didn't cool down the coffee, but they kept it hot. All right, so that was about enough to convince a jury the fact that she was harmed. I don't know, they probably found her maybe 30% responsible for the injury and McDonald's 70%. But what really turned the jury in her favor was the fact that they had so many cases against them where there were actual damages. And so what the jury in the I think this was the first case because it was set aside by the judge. But so what the jury awarded this woman was 2 days worth of coffee sales from McDonald's because yeah, really, and that's because they're probably the thinking of the lawyers who asked for that. So her lawyers suggested that damage.
One question.
Award.
Where was this jury, Pyong? Where was this?
You know, I don't remember where it was.
Okay, keep going. That's asinine.
Was she in? No. And it's a common theory in the law when you have these massive firms. If you have this massive firm, like say her I don't remember what her medical fees were or medical expenses were. I used to know.
It was only like she only needed I think $20,000 to cover her medical expenses.
Wow.
I'm not sure.
Outside of insurance?
I'm looking at Wikipedia, so yeah. That was after insurance. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. But the reason why the jury awarded this 2 days worth of coffee sales to the woman, okay, was because if you go to McDonald's and say, let's assume that Char's right and that it's $20,000, you go to McDonald's and say you have to pay $20,000. They're like, yeah, we give a fuck. At that point, their lawyers had probably made 8 to 10 times that already in legal fees.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? They don't care about that. And the woman, if she took if she had a representation based on a contingency fee, she might have ended up with like 12 grand anyway or whatever. But that's beside the point. So the theory is you want to make McDonald's recognize that this is damaging, that this is wrong. You want something that actually affects them. And 2 days worth of coffee sales isn't going to really hurt them that bad, but they're going to notice. They're going to notice. So as soon as the jury came back with that award, the judge immediately set it aside as being too large. So it was an egregious award. And they eventually settled for, well, it's unknown what they settled for, but for some reason I always thought that it was some amount less than $400,000. And I think that was because the judge set aside the $2 million award and then set the damages at $400,000. And so
I'm reading 640 on Wikipedia. 640.
Oh, was that what the judge said?
Maybe, yeah, if this is right.
Well, we don't. Does Wikipedia claim to know how much the woman made? Because they don't.
Know.
They can't know.
No. Yeah,
that was never published. So, but it must be. The reason I say I thought it was a different number. Like I said, I'm probably going to get some of these details wrong. But the reason I think it's lower is, if the judge has a certain award when they negotiate, I'm sure that they made a little bit less than what the judge awarded them. So.
Yeah, probably. Well, she probably had to pay some fees to her lawyers and stuff.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they took it on contingency. So, which is like 20% or something.
Yeah, and it looks like the trial was in New Mexico.
Okay, did they shop for the jury, do you think? Or they just...
No, probably not, because if they wanted to shop for a jury, the biggest awards have been given in, what was the name of that county? Madison County, Illinois. That's where they had all those massive tobacco awards, remember?
All right.
And so how much did she get? Am I seeing this correctly? She got $2.7 million? Was that the...
No. Well, the initial award from the jury may have been somewhere in the $2 million range, but the judge set it aside, and then he established another remedy, which Shar says was 600
Oh,
something.
no, okay, wait. I found more. The decision was appealed by both McDonald's and Liebeck in 1994, and they settled out of court for an undisclosed amount of less than 600,000.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So would we assume that 600,000 or thereabouts would have covered her medical expenses and loss of income and legal expenses and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think so. But again, it's the
Painful
award
way to
was
die.
also. I'm sorry.
Painful way to die.
Well, she didn't die.
Well, she didn't die. She wasn't killed by
eventually
McDonald's
died.
coffee.
Yeah, but contributed to the
Right.
Yeah, it could
quality of life.
have. Right, it could have been. Like I said, it could have been a
A
factor.
lot of
in
things can
reducing
be
reducing the length of her life. But again, Jeff, the damages aren't always about recovering pain and suffering and that sort of thing. And in this case, it was to really make McDonald's feel the pinch, make McDonald's feel something for doing something wrong. So that's how that worked.
Yeah, but how is that justice? So in other words, somebody
Jeff,
was wronged,
Jeff,
and
let
you
me
want.
stop
But
you.
hold on. No.
Jeff, let me stop you. Let me
don't
stop you.
No, let me finish.
Jeff. Justice is an amorphous concept that has to do with your conclusion about if it was right or not.
No, well,
There's
we're
no
talking about
principle.
that's right, but we're talking about your conclusion is that McDonald's should have to be punished, and that's your definition of justice.
No,
So I'm
that's
asking-
not my
I'm
that's
asking
not
what-
my definition of justice.
Yeah,
No,
well,
it isn't.
okay,
and I
so
didn't say
I'm
they should be punished. I
okay,
said
so,
that's the
so your
doctrine.
definition of justice stands. No definition of justice is good except for yours.
No.
Well, how
Jeff,
about
So as
Jeff,
long as
I never.
McDonald's-
Jeff, settle
McDonald's
down
has
here.
taught
Hold
an
on. Wait,
lesson.
Jeff, pump the
how about
brakes.
this? How about this,
Pump
guy?
the brakes. I never said that that's how it should be, according to me. I'm saying that's the way it is. Okay? So I never say
that's not all
this
you
is my.
said. You said
Wait a second,
well,
Jeff.
because no, there was. I said, did she get compensated for her losses and all of that was related to this if they were guilty? And you said no, but
No.
they did. It was to teach McDonald's a lesson and all.
No,
this.
actually, Jeff, I said yes. My answer was yes.
Your answer was yes, but that was insufficient.
That's not what you said. You
No,
just
no,
said
that's
my
what you
answer was
said.
no.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let's.
All right.
what-
Well,
so what is your-
anyway,
what
I
is
think
your
you
answer?
understand. I think you understand
what
the
is-
situation a little.
What is your answer? That it was a good decision or a bad decision?
My opinion of it really doesn't matter, and the only reason I bring it up is that it's misconceived. People don't understand actually what happened, and they think that because they don't understand these concepts of making McDonald's feel
Okay.
the pain, and they think that she
Okay,
got the two.
okay, that's where you're okay. So I will grant you that people don't understand it, and maybe McDonald's was negligent, and maybe their coffee probably was really, really hot. I kind of remember that myself from. I didn't like how hot their coffee was back in those days, and I get that it was hot. So if somebody injured themselves and there was an action, you would expect that person to be compensated for what happened to them, and plus whatever you want to tack on about suffering and legal expenses and all that stuff. That seems to me perfectly reasonable. But then when you get into this socio teaching a lesson, this kind of stuff, that's where justice gets turned upside down, and that's what I was sort of commenting on because you brought it up. I didn't.
I'm not saying, okay, Jeff, again, justice is a term that I've never used professionally. I just want to make sure that you understand where I'm coming from that. Because justice is an evaluation of a conclusion that is entirely subjective. So, as far as getting justice or the sense of
However,
justice.
you're saying that people didn't understand certain things about this case that were important, and why are they important? Because you think they're important for some reason. Why is that?
Well, because there is listen to this. When Shar came in and she said that we don't have people who sue in Canada like they did in the McDonald's case, they are absolutely equally litigious in Canada as they are in the United States.
So-
You know what they don't have in Canada? They don't have a movement to lessen liability for business entities that has been sanctioned by the administration or previous administrations.
Well,
That's the big difference.
yeah,
When
but
I say that
I
people
just want
don't-
to point out that when you're saying, "Oh, I'm not judging or anything," you're saying people should.
Did I
know.
ever say
No,
that?
No, wait.
You're saying people should know certain things about this case for some reason, and you're not saying, "Well, she also ordered an egg McMuffin or whatever."
Well, the thing is,
You're saying
like-
that people should know something about this case because it was just or unjust, or because there were other factors in how it was decided. And that's what you're saying. So I just want to point that out.
Very
Well,
good.
these are a lot of that.
Let's hear Shar real quick. Go ahead, Shar.
Okay, but so here's the thing, like, because there are other factors that people aren't aware of. The fact that she asked McDonald's for a measly $20,000 to cover
Right.
the
So you're saying
expenses
McDonald's
that she had.
acted unjustly in this.
No, I didn't say.
case.
Listen. I said they could have given her a measly $20,000, right, and just avoided all of this.
Exactly.
It's not. That's not to say that they had to do it, because I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, they probably had the word "very hot coffee," you know, like they probably had that written on the coffee cup at the time, or maybe they didn't. I don't know, but at the same time, I think, yeah, like if you do something that indirectly causes, you know, somebody to suffer,
It's not good business.
it's not good business. But here's the thing. So here's the thing. Like, I get it. Like from the libertarian side of me, I look at it and I say, you know, like, if a business sucks, people should just stop using that business. Should stop going there and should stop buying from them. And I think that's ultimately the best way to handle things in our society. However, McDonald's isn't a business like that. It's at a whole other level. We're talking about a worldwide
corporation.
That's a great point.
We're talking about a specific case versus your
but listen,
world view of McDonald's and all of that, and that's
but I'm not there yet.
Please, Jeff.
I wasn't done yet. But listen, I wasn't done yet. So here's the thing. So McDonald's is on a whole other level. So how is it possible for the public to penalize McDonald's by just not going there? Because you can't even. You look at all these burn cases. There were tons of them. It wasn't just this one woman. So the word wasn't getting out.
This was the case that was on trial. So we're talking about this particular case.
But it isn't.
And I didn't say it should be ignored. I didn't say that it should be ignored.
Right. So I'm just saying that although I don't like it necessarily. I don't like the whole idea of having to sue a company. I don't like it, but I don't really know of a better way.
Right.
To change things.
No, I didn't say she shouldn't sue. I'm just saying that the implication is that, well, there's all this stuff we didn't know, and that therefore McDonald's was more culpable than we thought they might be, which may be the case. I can accept that, but it's like okay, so we all didn't know this. So what does this new knowledge tell us about the case? And you're like, oh, well, far be it from me to judge. I'm just saying.
Oh, so you're saying that my points don't have merit because I'm wishy-washy? Are you fucking serious?
No.
You know about. Hey, Jeff. Wait a minute. Hold on. Pump the brakes, Jeff. Before you fucking get on a McDonald's train there. Hey, they're a big business. Yeah, they serve the customer. Hooray!
Well, you're putting words in my mouth.
Hey, did you know that there were 2,000 cases of burns, dude?
Okay,
I mean, but that doesn't matter, right? Because if they're not serving the customer, they'll fail. My ass, dude.
Okay,
so
you're putting all these other cases on trial, so that's what your agenda.
That's part of the reason that they got the remedy. And again, another thing that you didn't understand.
I understand. So
another thing that you didn't understand, where you said she got $2 million.
Yeah.
How much did she get, Jeff? Tell me how much she got, Big Daddy.
I asked you the question.
How much did she get, Jeff?
I asked you the question. You're the
How much
expert
did
on
she
this
get,
case.
Jeff?
I asked you the
question. So
question.
that's something you don't understand, right?
Yeah, I was asking the question, and you got all bent out of shape because I was asking questions about whether she was fairly compensated, and then you went ballistic about, well, I don't know. Far be it from me, but you guys don't know enough, and we don't know about what.
I didn't say any of that shit.
Well, look, listen. The only thing that crosses my mind, guys, is that really, wasn't it just a matter of time? I mean, the old lady came before the little kid getting burned. You know what I mean? It was just a matter of time before this thing was going to unwind for McDonald's.
Right.
So,
Well, yeah, it appears that way because there were all of the fucking burn cases.
right.
I mean,
So,
so it's a no-brainer.
But this wasn't a
But
class action.
just
it was a.
no, it wasn't a class action.
So the other stuff is hearsay about all these
okay,
other
well,
burn cases.
No.
something, Pyong.
No, it's not because they were causes of action that were brought against McDonald's. Hearsay? What the fuck are you talking about? Hearsay?
Right. Okay. Well, let me just ask a quick
Well,
question that jumped in my
They,
mind.
they didn't go to trial, right?
Well, no.
does
I
that
mean,
matter?
these are probably actual complaints.
So
Jeff.
so other people complained about this, and therefore, that's all prima facie proof.
Well, Jeff, there's
What the-
all sorts of
does
recourses
the
that are.
court of Jeff not allow hearsay or something? What the fuck are you talking about?
I personally say that McDonald's coffee was kind of hot too. I didn't really like it in those days.
Anyway, yeah. Go
Okay,
ahead.
but,
But that doesn't mean
my mind.
that was an action. I just didn't like it.
Okay, John, could you tell us a little bit of class actions? How exactly is that? How does that approach work? Does it work, class actions?
Well, I don't know. I have a limited understanding of class actions. I've never worked on a class action, so I don't know. The class actions have an administrative phase where a finder of fact has to.
Do you think a lawyer would
Go
have
ahead.
told McDonald's, hey, you're eventually going to have the single suit, or you're going to have the class action?
Right. Well, it's not. It probably. 2,000 seems like a lot, but
Yeah.
whether or not there would be a class action, it might not occur.
Do you
So-
think lawyers go around shopping for class actions?
Oh, I know they do.
So they're
Absolutely.
So your position is there's various things that people don't know about this case, but they may or may not really have any bearing on whether or not McDonald's was culpable or not.
Well, Jeff, my position has already been established. I think it was very clear.
Does that summarize it pretty well?
I didn't really hear what you said.
Well, I said your position is that there are various aspects of this case that people don't know about, but they don't necessarily establish that McDonald's was any more culpable or not than the findings were.
The reason I bring it up is because most people have a myopic view of the actual events, and the reason they do is because of
propaganda.
concerted efforts.
But that
from,
doesn't
like,
mean their impression
So
of this case is right or wrong.
are you gonna keep interrupting me or what, dude? You're gonna ask me a fucking question,
No, go ahead.
and
I'm
then
sorry.
you're gonna put
Then
in whatever the
He's,
fuck you want.
he's,
I tell you what, hey Jeff, why
Go
don't
ahead.
you tell me what my objective was and what I said? We'll just go with that, okay? Big
I
Daddy?
already did, but I was saying you were introducing new facts to the case that people may or may not know, but you weren't weighing in on whether or not McDonald's was any more or less culpable than the actual decision was.
Is that what you just got from what I said?
Yeah,
Really,
kind
Jeff?
of, kind of. So yeah.
Fuck, I hope you don't have a job where you have to listen, bro. That's all I got to say.
I will say this. I remember
That kind of seems like what you said, but go ahead.
I remember back when it happened, and I remember everybody was like, "Oh, you got a little bit burned because your coffee was too hot, and you get like $2.5 million." Which I could sue for $2.5 million because I got a little bit of a burn. That was the misconception that everybody had at the time.
Yeah,
Right,
and
right.
I get that wasn't right. I saw the pictures. I saw she was just pretty badly burned. Yeah.
And right, and that was part of a trend, like an attempted policy shift on behalf of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is a lobby group, among others, to limit liability for business entities. It's very simple. It's not rocket science.
And that's a horrible thing that corporations have limited liability. That's the corporation non-person thing. I'm totally with you on.
Well, that's kind of see, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I don't think it's a big bone of contention. But don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm saying that they're attempting to limit liability for business entities, but what they're doing
Because they're limited liability corporations.
Jeff,
they're working on behalf of business entities, yes. But what they're doing is they're putting in, like, you've heard the term tort reform, right?
Yes.
Of course you have.
Yes.
tort reform. That's the same issue. When they come in and they say we're going to limit a citizen's ability to get redress in the courts, and
Right.
we're going to say you can only. They have limits in some places. Actually, Bunto,
against the corporation, which is a government protected entity. Yeah.
Well, no. They have limits for everybody, but it is typically the reason that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce pursues that is because typically business entities, are targeted. Because if an individual gets a big judgment against them, they could simply simply go bankrupt or something like that, or just say, they wouldn't go after them in the first place. So.
Right. It's horribly unjust. It's a kangaroo court, no matter what you.
Very good.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
So, okay, we've had our arena, and we're all warmed up now. Should we do junk science, or, there are so many. It's a very interesting subject that you brought up, Kyung, as far as class action and tort reform, and I know for another hangout, I want to really dive into that because
I don't know shit about class action. That's what you said.
Well, yeah,
I have no
that
idea what you're talking about.
just the what do you call it, the brush strokes. Go ahead,
I
Sharon.
was in a class action once.
Oh, well,
were
I
you?
was one too.
And I got a payout of $1.70
Me too, Sharon. I got like 38 cents.
Yeah, yeah, and I have no idea what it was even for because I don't even remember.
I think my hard drive was.
Yeah, it was something it was just something I'd bought and registered online, and I got a payout. I don't even think I cashed the check.
Just as a point of personal privilege, if this woman was injured by McDonald's coffee and it was their fault, she should be compensated. Her medical expenses should be paid. Her legal expenses should be paid. All this stuff, but the stuff about teaching McDonald's a lesson and all this socioeconomic bullshit, that is injustice. That's going way over the line. I've sympathized with this woman. I saw pictures of her injuries, and she should definitely be compensated for that. If McDonald's was negligent, I totally agree with that.
Yes, Jeff. But can you see where Pyong's point is that
Well,
they're
wait, it's
trying
not
to
my.
reduce
Hold on.
liability.
Let me clarify something very very quickly. It's not Pyong's point. That's the basis of punitive damages.
Okay.
Well, it may be, but I'm talking about regular restorative justice. This person should be compensated for what happened to her. Nothing more. It's not a referendum against McDonald's or anything like that. It's a dispute. It's something that should be described within the context of what happened, and not about McDonald's, they need to learn a lesson, or all these other people should be compensated. Well, they should have their own lawsuit or a class action suit or whatever. So that's my only.
Well, let me quickly interject here. Okay, Jeff. Okay, let's say that I assume that position, or I'm saying I want to teach McDonald's a lesson because they're trying to reduce all liabilities. Like, let's say it's not 2,000 people that are being burned by coffee, but 200,000 people being burned by coffee.
Then you're just doing activism. Yeah.
Oh, well, you see what I mean? It's sort of like they have the playing field, so I want to, get some redress.
Yeah, you're talking about doing social engineering or anything
Well,
like that.
They're socially engineering their way.
There is a mechanism. There's a class action suit mechanism, which is good for accumulating the grievances of a bunch of people and efficiently, of course.
But the thing is, like Shar said, she got $1, I got 38 cents. Besides my, $20,000 worth of burn damage on myself. See what I mean?
Jeff, let me ask you about the Ford Pinto cases. Do you remember the Ford Pinto cases?
Yes.
Okay. So Ford now they've admitted this, that they actively determined that it would be better instead of changing, I can't remember how much the part was, but they had
the gas tank.
Right, the gas tank was behind the rear passenger seat on a hatchback, and there was a metal fuel line that went from the gas tank to the carburetor, whatever. And they knew that in rear impacts that they would sometimes rupture and explode, or burst into flames, I should say.
Yes.
And so Ford, instead of paying for this whatever $6 part or $3 part or whatever and having a recall,
They decided it would be cheaper to pay the damages for whatever
Wrongful death. That's right. They
Might
actively
occur.
they actively knew they actively made a decision that yes, people are going to die, but it's cheaper for us to just pay the damages. Now, do you think that's okay?
Personally, no. No, I don't think that's okay.
Okay, so, but what you're saying is, but that's okay, fuck it, you know, the decision to do that,
Well, I think
well,
no,
hold on, Jeff,
no.
hold
I
on.
think Ford should have to pay for the wrongful
Wait,
deaths.
let me lay this out. Let me lay this
They
out.
should have to pay
Let me
for the
lay this
wrongful
out.
deaths
Let me lay this
on
out,
those
Jeff.
cases. Yeah.
Hold on. Hold
ahead.
on. I'm not done. Okay, so what you're saying is the decision to make it so that the people die, that shouldn't be touched, but the families of the dead should be compensated. Is that right?
Yes, people should be compensated for wrongful deaths. Absolutely.
And then the decision to go ahead and kill people, okay, or allow people to die.
I wouldn't characterize their decision quite that way.
Okay,
That
how
they
would
kill
you
people.
like to characterize it?
Well, I would characterize it as saying, first of all, that there's no such thing as absolute safety. So cars, if they were absolutely safe,
We're beyond that point, Jeff. They actually admitted that they made the decision that they knew people would die. But how would you characterize that? Well, how would you characterize that decision then? Not killing people, but willful disregard for safety.
If you're making cars, you know a certain number of people are going to die in car accidents. That's a given, and unfortunately, we don't have nirvana on Earth. So you would say, is it worth it to have to do X, Y, and Z to achieve absolute safety on this car? And at any given point, you are making a calculated risk-based decision that if something goes wrong, and it sounds like this was not a very good risk-based decision, but there's no such thing as absolute safety when you're making.
But that's not what we're
there are some things
that's not what we're debating. That's already.
There are some cases where a car could be more safe.
They admitted that they knew that not replacing this part would lead to deaths. They knew that, and they actually calculated statistically how much they would have to pay. So it's not about making an absolutely safe car. It was a wrong decision. But now you want to characterize that in what way? Disregard for safety? You said killing people wasn't right. You want to characterize it in a different way, or can I just continue?
Safety is not an absolute. So
I understand that, Jeff.
We can't have perfect safety when we're making cars. So
they admitted.
If there's a risk,
understanding. Well, they admitted
there's a risk that a certain number of people would be possibly in a fatal accident, and that's a very sobering thing to do. But there's always a certain number of people that may die if your car is not absolutely safe.
Okay, I think you're changing the facts of the case kind of to fit what you want it to fit. But I don't think we need to really talk about it anymore. I think you understand. I just wanted to know if there was, I mean, the Ford case is a clear-cut example of why punitive damages should probably exist for most people. Now, not for you. Okay, I understand that. Obviously, you're not even willing to accept the admitted fact pattern that would lead to the point where punitive damages would be appropriate. But that's my point.
If they were willfully negligent,
they disregarded safety.
Safety is not an absolute thing.
Yes, I know.
If we wanted absolute safety, we would all drive Humvees, but then we would have to pay a lot for gas and stuff like that, and we would be pretty close.
Okay, well, how about this, Jeff? Let's suppose they announce to the world that our car explodes. Why didn't they do that?
Well, because it doesn't explode. Most Pintos didn't. A friend of mine had a Pinto and it never exploded.
The later Pintos didn't have that defect though, because they got sued.
Yeah.
No, see, it's
that's not the reason why.
I'm an engineer, right? So I remember going through law and ethics in university, and then you have to read a whole bunch of stuff and write an ethics exam and stuff. And it's not about eliminating risk factors, because you can never do that, right? Like you can't eliminate risk. There's always a danger in anything you design. That's right. But if you know that there's a flaw, you cannot ethically ignore it.
Absolutely.
Can't.
What kind of engineer are you, Shar?
Mechanical.
I'm a mechanical engineer too.
Oh.
Yeah, that was my undergraduate degree before I went to law school. Was mechanical engineering. Love it, Purdue. But anyway, yeah, no, I totally agree with what you say, and I understand Jeff's point too. But my assertion is we're beyond that, because they weren't saying, Ford, you have a duty to make an absolutely safe car. What they were saying was, we have memorandum that were available within Ford,
And
where
that's
the
and
bean
that's part of the
counters said,
case. And that's part of the
where the-
case that you can use against those people who complained, of the people who were killed and those who were complaining on behalf of them. That's
right.
definitely relevant to the case. I don't
That's
dispute that.
that's true, Jeff. But my question was really an array of questions to see if there was any fact pattern where you would say punitive damages are acceptable. The Ford case is a clear example where they said, we believe statistically that if we don't change this part, these number of people will die. And I think they estimated like 12 would die per year or something.
Are at
And then
risk
they
of
said,
risk of dying. Yes.
this is, yeah, probability. So they said, this is how much it would cost to change the part. This is how much we believe we would have to pay for wrongful death or to compensate people for the death. We'll pick the death. Now, it's not a matter of saying, like I said, that Ford had a duty to create an absolutely safe car. I totally understand your point. I totally understand Shar's point. I was only trying to illustrate a case where that is a case where if somebody reasonable is
Right.
going to say, and not that you're not reasonable, but I would say, let me rephrase that. Most people would say, okay, you know what? Let's get on Ford for making that decision. That's a bullshit decision.
That's an easy thing to do. Ford has deep pockets. Let's just get on their case. Let's.
No. I'm not. I'm
Right.
saying that's where they would say punitive damages are appropriate. That's what I meant. I said it in a colloquial way, but precisely what I meant was that punitive damages are appropriate. You don't think so? That's all I was asking.
I think the people who were injured by this should be compensated. I don't think Ford needs
They're
to
dead, Jeff.
be an example. Well, no. Well, yes. Unfortunately, people die, and their families have to be compensated. And I don't minimize that. It's horrible that happens. But again, we're talking about a continuum problem. We're talking about, should we choose absolute non-risk to risk? So yeah, we do make economic decisions. There's this whole thing about, well, if we save one life, we shouldn't do X. Well, baloney. We make those kind of calculations all the time.
Well, actually, the policies are now that we don't make those. We do make the considerations, but we don't make the bad mistake that Ford. No, that's why when Shar went through school, that's why she had an ethical course where they said, hey, don't fuck up like this.
Well, I mean, we don't say like, okay, the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. If we lowered it, wait a minute. If we lowered it down to 30, we would save probably lots of lives. We'd save at least one life. Well, if we save one life, isn't it worth just lowering it to 30? No.
Apples and oranges. You've generalized.
It's not.
You've generalized the facts of a particular case.
I'm talking about risk versus.
You've generalized the facts of a particular case.
But we do.
And now you're trying to create an analogy to those generalized facts.
I'm only demonstrating that we put a cost on risk. We say, yes, if we don't have 20% more safety, then somebody might die. That's just what we do. That's unfortunate.
Right.
That's how that works.
Right. But again, I'm not advocating some kind of a position where Ford has a duty to create a safe product. I'm saying that Ford made a decision to not replace a product, and they made a calculated decision.
And that happens all the time.
Cheaper. No, Jeff,
yes,
it doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah. People make economic decisions about their safety.
Jeff,
drive too fast.
We're not. Jeff, I understand. I've already conceded that point that people make economic decisions.
Yes.
It's a rather non-controversial point.
It is. Yeah, thank you.
What I'm talking about is this specific instance where most people would recognize that punitive damages are something that are appropriate, and you don't. That's okay.
You're looking at that in the light of existing tragedies, which makes it far more dramatic and
Well,
out
okay,
there.
let me jump in here.
But it happens behind the scenes, but we usually don't see it dramatized to this effect. So it's dramatic in this case because we're talking about specific people who may have died because of this. That makes it more dramatic, but it doesn't mean we don't make those kinds of calculations all the time and that they aren't rational to do
Okay.
in this world.
Let me go ahead and jump in here. Jeff, isn't it usually after the fact, after the accident, where we want to sort of have a victim blaming, like say you should have known that, a Pinto is a smaller car than a Humvee and could be
Sure. Yeah, when
safer.
somebody dies, I had lost a loved one recently, and it's like, oh my God, what should I have done? And it's horrific, and it's absolutely, but we don't. We make calculations all the time that aren't conducive
Okay.
to a risk-free world, and we make economic trade-offs based on
Okay, go ahead,
risk.
Sharon.
So,
And then I thought it was something.
So kind of a question here, I guess. Well, or I don't know. So we don't only interfere when an accident has happened, right? Like when somebody has been injured or is killed. That isn't the only time when we, like sue or when the cops get involved or that sort of thing. Whenever we put people in a risky situation, that can be taken into account as well, right?
Absolutely.
So I mean, like we don't walk around pointing a loaded gun at somebody, right? Like that doesn't.
right. If you
Right.
put somebody in clear and present danger, you can argue.
Right.
Right.
So looking at it from an engineering perspective, there are things that I could design that could get built that could pose a clear and present danger to people. So that should be allowed, right? Like, do I just assume? Well, probably.
It's not that it's allowed; it's unavoidable that there is going to be some.
No,
you
that's just
develop a product that it may blow up when somebody plugs it in. There might be.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
but sometimes it is avoidable. Like there are things, like I know as an engineer, there are some stupid things that I could do to save money that would make a product dangerous. Right? So if I did that willingly, right, to save money, is that okay?
Well, you do make those calculations. You say, well, if for this product to be absolutely safe, I can make that, but nobody's gonna be able to afford it. So.
Right. So I can point a
question.
loaded gun at your face too, and say, well, as long as I don't pull the trigger, it's perfectly safe. But you're not gonna like it. And
Well, you're an aggressor if you're pointing a gun at my face, so that's not a good analogy.
Well, I don't know that it's different.
Take this example,
it's
all right?
very
Take this
different,
example. Say that, all right, there's a food company that sees it that they can use chemicals to, preservatives. They can add things that are probably not the best thing for human beings to consume, but they still put them anyways in there because it's cheaper and it's more efficient and the costs outweigh, or the gains outweigh the costs, so to say.
And people can it can be bought cheaper because it can be stored for longer and stuff like that. So it's a trade-off.
So okay, but do you think that it is the person's fault for buying that food and allowing themselves to kill themselves, pretty much, or is it the company's fault for producing that product? That's what you're pretty much getting at.
If the
can I
company
answer for
poisoned
Jeff?
that person, then it would be the company's fault if they poisoned that person.
But you guys have, I don't know about in the States, but I mean, you guys do have ingredients of all your foods, right? Listed? Like, it's not a secret.
Labels. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So if it's not a secret, then I'm talking more about, like, if you're keeping this a secret from the public, then that would be different. Yes, if they're poisoning my food at say McDonald's, if they're putting cyanide in my fries, I want to, like, and they're not telling me about that, then yes, that should be something.
But it's a continuum problem. It's not okay. So my gas.
It's not
tank,
a yes or no.
Right. My gas tank is it's safe enough, but it's not the most metaphysically safe gas tank in the world because if it were, you couldn't afford it. So.
Well, but that's not the issue because as I said, I said there was no duty on Ford to make the most safe gas tank conceivable. Mm-hmm. I mean that's not even an issue. What What was culpable in my mind was the very fact that they so disregarded human life that they just assigned it a dollar number. And they were going to say, you know what,
Right.
we know how much we're going to pay, and it's cheaper for us.
That's
Now,
how you characterize it. That doesn't mean they were like, oh, so what if a few people die?
oh,
But
no, yeah.
it
Well, I
doesn't
hope
have-
I hope
yeah.
they said it with like Valentine's and flowery shit when they made that decision. Okay, I
No,
really
but
don't
they
care
talk
how they
about
made the
the- well,
decision. They made the decision, and they
but-
admitted they did.
No, but that's how risk. There's a whole
Yeah, risk.
industry-
Yeah.
risk
Okay.
risk
Okay.
analysis is an industry, and people pool
All right.
risks. And
Yeah.
that doesn't. They're like an insurance company will say, we want to fund this, but what's the risk of there being
Yeah, I
a
understand.
hurricane? That doesn't mean, oh, so what if there's
Right. Risk assessment isn't culpable.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
risk
All right.
assessment isn't culpable. Making a decision like that
risk
is.
benefit is part of life on Earth.
Risk, right.
Well, and I'll just add, as an engineer, that is part of what you learn. You learn about risk assessment and risk management, and
Absolutely.
yes, it's absolutely a part of life. It's just, I don't know, and there's no clear-cut line where you reach a point where you say this is no longer ethical. I get it.
Right.
Well,
And that's the problem with this Ford thing. Because oh my God, they were saying, oh, they so devalued life that they were saying, oh, so many people might die. Well, yes, that's something that adults have to look at when they're
why are
producing
you
a
making that
product.
voice when you say that? By the way, it makes you sound so silly when you make that. Oh my God, over here.
Anyway, okay,
Now,
Dan.
I want to make one point though.
I was
Shar
actually
brought
trying
up
to imitate
ethical
your voices.
considerations.
Okay, go ahead.
Shar brought up the ethical considerations of engineering design,
Right.
Yes.
and it's determining the rightness of action. And so she says, you know, is it ethical for me to design something that could potentially be dangerous? Where is that line? I think it depends on the guiding principles. Jeff's guiding principle seems to be autonomy. Fuck you, government, autonomy, baby, freedom.
I don't know where you got that, but
Yeah, I don't know either. But
but
that's
it's a good rhetorical.
that's where your guiding principles seem to be as far as an ethical consideration.
And that's your point. All that more Trojan, so go with it. I won't deprive you of that.
Thanks.
Okay, quick. Okay, go for the point. So I want to
Right.
dovetail into Shar.
Yeah, I did. I made it
Okay,
already.
well, okay, very good. Let me give you an engineering example that I just know. It's of a current event that happened, a not so long ago event. The Malaysian airplane that disappeared. Okay, are you all familiar with that?
Yeah.
At the beginning of the year, right? What happened was that the plane had a transponder. Okay, I'm going to give you three participants, three individuals. Okay, we have the Malaysian airline. We have the Boeing Airplane Corporation. It's their plane, right? And then we have the passengers, okay? And what I like to ask our panel here is who is culpable? You know, I mean, well, who is at fault? The plane disappeared over the ocean, and we'll probably never find it again, right? Because the pilot disengaged the transponder. You all understand that? I didn't know that the pilot had such power that he could. I mean, isn't a transponder in an airplane supposed to be always on? Isn't there some sort of international agreement where a plane's transponder always has to be on? To me, it makes sense.
Well,
Yes,
I
yes.
have no idea. I've heard there's some power circuits that get cut in a crisis. So in other words, I can't. If somebody's an expert on this, I will defer to them.
Apparently, the pilot had within his power the ability to deactivate the transponder, so we'll never be able to find that airplane again. Okay, so whose fault is that? The engineering, the pilot who's a part of the Malaysian airline, or the people they just took it for granted that if they were going to be on an airplane, that all safety considerations were going to be taken care of.
It's
I don't
tricky
know.
because, like, in terms of engineering, you're given instructions. You're told, you design this. This is what we want. These are properties we want it to have, and that's your job. The only time that you don't have to fulfill those goals as given to you by your employer is when a human is at some risk, right? So if I was making a transponder and I knew that being able to turn it off was a bad thing that would cause people to die, then I ethically shouldn't design it, right? Or whatever I have to do. But how could you know that turning off a transponder is a bad thing. Like, I don't even know that it is, because I'm not a pilot. I don't
Well,
know
think about
how
it,
that
Shar. I mean,
works.
for what reason would somebody need to turn off that transponder? I mean, what
I
crosses
could imagine
engineering's mind?
some.
Okay,
Well,
go ahead, tell
what
me.
if you're being, well, okay, now this is going to sound stupid, but just theoretically, what if you were being chased by an alien spacecraft and they were following your
And
transponder?
they were tracking us by the transponder, then the pilot
Sure.
should have the ability to turn off the transponder.
Sure. Ridiculous example, I know. But I'm just saying, what if there is one? What if there is an example?
Okay, well, what's the Boeing people going to say when the families sue them? What do you think they'd say? You know, the
Well,
Boeing people would come back with something like that?
how do we know that he turned it off? Do we actually know that?
Well, I mean, we have a plane that, you know, everybody in the world accepted the fact that a transponder would help us find that plane, right?
Yeah.
And then finally the Malaysian airline copped the fact, they admitted it in the press, that these pilots knew how to turn that transponder off.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I don't know.
Okay, so Jeff, just to ask you, is it the fault of the people for they should have known that there was a safety risk in the airplane, that somebody was going to, you know, who in the...
Are you assuming that there's foul play here?
I think there was foul play. I think
So
the
let's
guy...
just go under the assumption that there was foul play by the pilot.
Right, I think so.
So then wouldn't the pilot just be responsible
Well, okay, there goes. So is the airline responsible?
for hiring the pilot?
Yeah. I mean, that follows, doesn't it? I mean, it's their boy.
I think if they knew, if they didn't properly interview them and check their background and stuff, and they knew that they were a risk, then yeah. But I mean, it's pretty hard to tell when you hire somebody.
Everything that Jeff has sort of told us makes me lead to believe that maybe Jeff would hold the people, that maybe they should have known that you couldn't make a plane absolutely safe, including a deranged pilot who might turn off the transponder.
Well, I think that's a given that you couldn't make a plane absolutely safe. I don't know why it is that I was trying to look it up because I don't know, when I don't know things, I don't usually...
Yeah, it's a Malaysian
anything. But so I was looking up why apparently it is possible to turn the transponder off from the cockpit. I was looking up to see what the rationale for that was, and I didn't. So I don't know. But if your question is, can a plane be absolutely safe? Well, of course not. It's a missile carrying people through the sky and shit.
The whole international airline industry knows that transponder has to be left on. See what I mean? So why would you even hold the people? Well, it's their fault for, you know. See, in my mind, that's the libertarian, the way they look at it. They say, well, you know, planes are a missile, they're all dangerous. You know, the fact that, you know, practices for the benefit of the whole were completely disregarded. You know, it's not the people's fault that was happening.
There's no libertarian answer as to whether a transponder should or should not be on.
Oh, actually,
the libertarian question is who was negligent, you know, was somebody culpable in the wrongful death of other people, whatever the case may be.
Well, okay, Jeff, in your mind, was it the airline or was it the airplane manufacturer that should be held culpable?
I have no idea. I don't know what the facts of that case are.
If that was the case, if the pilot turned off the transponder, is it the fault of the airline or is it the fault of the people that engineered it that it could be turned off?
I think you still can't answer the question.
Well, if turning the transponder off didn't make any differences to the outcome, so I don't know why there would be increased culpability there.
Byung?
I actually just found something interesting on well, I Googled it too.
Please.
And one of the answers from I don't know, some aviation forum or whatever is basically that everything that consumes power on an aircraft can potentially cause interference, short circuits, or otherwise jeopardize the safety of the flight, and therefore must be switchable. So that actually makes sense. Like, what if something else went wrong and they had to turn off the transponder in an attempt to fix it, right? So we don't know.
Yeah, and that's rings a bell to something that I read around the time from a pilot saying that the priority is safely landing the passengers not being detected. So all of the resources would be shifted to getting the plane safely on the ground, not
rather than detection.
rather than detection. And I think this is consistent with
I
what
sure
I
hope
read.
they rethink that. Somehow maybe make the transponder have its own power supply.
Yeah, the thing that you have to realize too about airplanes is that they're old technology. We don't put brand new technology in the sky. Same thing with like spacecraft. It's old stuff.
And air traffic control is decades old. They could get a lot more aircraft in the sky if they had modern equipment.
Yeah. But because flight is a risky business, they stick with what works and what they know, and they advance very slowly.
Well, also the airports are government owned, so it's not a priority. Whereas if airports were privately owned for profit and for risk, I would submit that they would be a lot more efficient.
Yeah.
And, we would have fewer missing planes and all that.
But we don't really even put electronics in orbit. Like electronics are kind of like the smallest part of a lot of our. It's kind of crazy because you think electronics, that's everything is based on that these days, but it's actually kind of older technology that we use in our satellites. It's kind of crazy.
All right, gang. This is a good, spirited conversation. I'd like to welcome Sid and Lyrics to our conversation.
Thank you so much.
Sid, how have you been? Tell us, please.
I've been fine.
What have you been up to? I haven't seen you around.
Oh, I've been working with Secular TV, and I have a weekly show.
Oh,
on there.
Go ahead and plug it over here, please.
Sure. Secular T is on Google Plus, and of course on YouTube, and we're pushing the secular point of view on everything, and we believe that the great debate, between the theists and the atheists, all that kind of stuff, like you see here every day. Well, it's kind of old hat now, right? It's time to move forward.
Well, is it as heated as it is on G Plus, or is it more level-headed, more give and take?
Oh, it's totally level-headed, and based on rational thinking, critical thinking. People who have something to contribute, always welcome.
Very good.
Anyone who wants to learn.
So, are there anybody else that we'd recognize on Secular TV? I think Tom Leeds is on Secular TV.
Tom Leeds is on, yeah. The neo-atheist you'd probably recognize.
Is G-Man on Secular TV?
No.
I believe I saw Lou Pliskin on there too.
Lou Pliskin.
Lou's my co-host, yeah. Lou's my co-host on Tuesday afternoons.
Okay, do they want arena battle on Secular TV, or just want to have knowledge given?
What do you mean by arena battle?
Arena battle is like what we have here on G+.
Oh, no.
Screaming, yelling.
No.
Challenging each other's position.
No, absolutely not. No. The idea is to progressively promote secularism and
excellent.
At the same time, because by attrition, the religious focus will slowly start to disappear into the background. Eventually, it'll become like a hobby, like it should be.
Right now, what's going on in the G+ drama world is they're all jumping up on Shani for Christ because she exposed several of the members of their hypocrisy. Do you guys know anything about that?
No, I know nothing about that.
Rand Cam and Brett Keane. Just curious if y'all were following that. They take her to task for interacting with atheists, and I know.
Oh, this is like between Christian and Christian sort of.
Yes, yes, it is a cat fight between Christian and Christian. Hello.
Hey.
Do y'all have friends that are believers, correct?
No, wrong.
No, you have none. Why not?
I have plenty. I have plenty of friends that are believers.
I don't trust
and family.
I don't trust believers.
Oh, I was specifically meaning G+ friends. G+ friends online.
Yes,
Yeah, I
Oh,
do.
Aaron
hell yeah, everybody.
Voluntarist is one of my very close theist friends on here.
Oh, online is a different story. Yes.
Have they ever come up to any of you saying that their Christian friends gave them heat for being friends with you? Eve?
Uh, no, not him. He don't get into the drama. I don't blame him.
Mm.
If people have a problem, I think he's more of the mindset. If people have a problem with the friends he holds, then they can fuck off.
What are you talking
Okay.
about?
Well, what happens, Sid, is like a Christian will tell another Christian, another believer, that, hey, I see you're hanging around with Bunto. Don't you know that he's a hardcore atheist troublemaker? See what I mean? Does that
Mm-hmm.
happen?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't care what anybody. Look, I'm not here to. I'm not here to win a popularity contest. I'm here to forward. I'm here to change. I'm here to make a difference and to be part of the change that
Okay,
is,
you
is
claim that,
inevitably
Sid.
coming.
Then how come you don't buddy up with any faith heads? You want to make a difference, but you don't buddy up with faith heads. Why?
Why would I? What? Firstly, a faith head being a delusionist.
A delusionist? Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Well, a believer. All right. How come you don't make friends with them?
I do make friends with them.
Well,
Online.
you just told me earlier that you did make friends with them.
Online, where I clarified. Online, I
Okay,
have
revise and
friends.
extend.
A lot of
Um,
religious people like Sid. I'll just add.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, a lot of people like Sid. A lot of religious people like me too.
Yeah, I'm okay on the internet. If I meet me face to face, you might never want to talk to me again. That's fine.
Yeah, I can see
Have they
that.
ever tried to convert you, Jeff?
Oh, every one of them.
Yeah, they do. Yes.
But you know what?
Some of them do. Not
It's
not all of them.
becoming. It's become so sort of cute almost because they have to. It's like they're OCD on their preaching. And what you get?
I think initially a lot of them do, but most of them don't try anymore.
They stop after a while. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like and some of my favorite people on G Plus are very religious, and the ones who like say it's just my faith and it works for me, I don't really care so much about that.
Right.
And you know they're some really good friends. We talk about stuff all the time, and I really like some of them. I'm not sure that I have more atheist friends or religious friends on G Plus.
Very good. Hello, Brojo. Okay, Eve. Does it? Okay, you've become used to your Christian friends trying to convert you.
No, not the ones that I'm real good friends with. I mean, they usually get the hint that that's not going to happen. So I think they kind of leave that alone. I mean, we still discuss their position.
Right. Robert, are you there? Simconis, welcome. Well, what's your experience with dealing with atheists? I mean, do you think they're overly sensitive, or they understand your position, or they don't even care?
I think they're really smart. That's why
Okay.
I come on here. I learn a lot of stuff.
Okay, well, could you extrapolate? Like, why do you think they're smart?
They know more about the Bible.
Thank you. The only thing
I
is,
don't know about
scripture
that.
doesn't come to mind. That's the only
The
thing.
pastors on here, and I don't know more about the Bible than pastors who.
There are some atheists on here. I'm not one of them who know a lot about the Bible, like Floyd and
Yeah, Floyd.
and Carlton knows a lot.
Floyd knows. I think he knows.
Well, even Forbidden Fruit is a newer guy that knows quite a bit about the more accepted Christian doctrine and the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay, Robert,
Yeah.
are you an evangelist or just a bystander?
I'm an evangelist.
Okay, so every day you target people, or what would you call it?
I go out to the homeless and I give them stuff and I talk to them about Christ where I live.
All right. Let's like kind of
Do you
corral
feed-
this to T+. Go ahead.
Could I just ask a quick question? Do you feed them first, or do you make them listen first?
Yeah, I take them out for lunch.
Okay.
Go to the Subway.
It's not like extortion or anything.
No.
Because sometimes I worry about that.
No.
I don't know. You imagine someone's super hungry and they'll do anything for a sandwich. And...
I don't even always talk about Christ.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. I think it's good that you're feeding people.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, Robert, I was just want to corral it into the G plus community. Have you ever evangelized, in Hangouts and in comments?
That's hard. I
How
tried.
come?
Oh, I'm not that smart, so
Well,
I,
let me.
I don't know what like a Calvinist or an Armenian is, or all those theological words.
Well, okay, let's say I was going to be, evangelizing. I mean, the first thing I tell anybody was like, if you believe in Christ, he'll completely change your life towards the better. Is that what you do?
No.
You don't tell them that. I mean, that's the big selling job of selling Christ. Hey, Lyric, you convert to Christ, everything's going to be A-okay.
I don't think that that's the selling point. I think the
Why
selling
is that not?
point, because I think that Christians know that it's not going to do anything. I think the selling point is more about the afterlife, is what I think the selling point is.
So not rewards here, but rewards in the hereafter.
Or damnation.
True, a punishment.
Damnation.
Now, let me ask you guys this. What happens if there is a God, right? And, we die, and this guy doesn't understand the reward concept at all. I mean, he doesn't know how to, either give heaven or hell correctly. So he just forgoes the whole thing and leaves it up to us to pick if we want to go to heaven, hell, or not exist. Does that sort of, put a monkey wrench in their concept of free will? Free will banks on reward.
All right. You went. Hey, you went over the deep edge, buddy.
Why? Tell me why, John.
I have no idea what the fuck you just said, and I've been listening even.
Okay, let's talk free will. Okay, that's a big, what would you say, kerfuffle among believers, right? That how important it is that God allows free will. You understand that part? If we do have free will or we don't have free will.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I say that all hinges upon reward at the end of the afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
It's controversial among atheists too. I hold a free will theory as an atheist, but many don't.
Okay, well, what I think is this: what throws the whole Christian concept off track is if God doesn't know how to apply reward punishment. It doesn't matter then, free will.
Okay.
Does that make?
Can you explain that?
You were saying that people would have a choice to go to heaven or hell, so they would have the free will to make that choice, right?
It was actually them having the free will. You see, in my understanding, let's say I'm a mass murderer, it's because God created me as a mass murderer, right? Isn't that? It wasn't my choice that I mass murdered, or was it because God created me as a mass murderer?
I'm not sure that's what
I don't
the Christian
think.
claim would be. No.
Yeah, I don't think that they would agree with that.
Hey, let's.
Okay, well, let's say it was my choice to be a mass murderer, right? Then I'm more powerful than God.
What
right?
the fuck?
Because he couldn't control. I mean,
Actually, God was much more of a mass murderer than you could ever hope to be.
That's true.
He might be his best friend.
Right.
What I want to know is what has Sid been doing? He looks like $1 million, dude. Sid looks great. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know if he's eating dolphin embryos or what the fuck he's doing.
You have a man crush on Sid?
I might. Get back on camera, Sid.
He is a strapping lad.
Keep doing what you're doing, buddy.
It's okay to have a man
What's
crush.
going on? What's happening?
No, man, you look great, dude. You look like $1 million.
Yeah, so?
Yeah.
Are you applying products, sir? Are you applying some sort of product?
I think he's buttering you up for something. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm very suspicious here. What's going on?
He's got a head shaped like Captain Picard.
Yeah.
Well, Captain Picard, yeah. He's got a spaceship.
Well, okay, guys, how about this? Just a quick, 5 centimeters off the ground. How do Christians understand how free will works? Can somebody nutshell that for us real quick?
I nominate Jeff.
Or
Oh, I
Ethan?
have
That's
no.
the first one that came to mind.
I can make the free will argument, but not from a Christian perspective.
Well, could somebody do it from the believers? Eve, do you know how believers understand free will?
Well, it depends on what believers are talking about, but I
They
think
don't all hold that.
Right. Like Calvinists, they don't
Isn't
believe
it
that,
like
right?
two
yeah, the
flavors
Calvinists
basically?
don't, right?
Determinists.
Right.
But there's really just two switches, right? There's the believers that believe that they have free will, and then people that believe that everything's determined.
No. There's not just that. There's also people who think that there's kind of a mutual thing there.
Okay, and in the middle. Okay, so on, off, and in the middle. Let's say.
Right.
Okay, well, doesn't all that depend on how God deals out the reward punishment at the end for the afterlife? The actions that they take during their life.
Well, it's not really based on the actions according to some of them. According to some of them, it's just based on belief.
Can, like, Hitler be in heaven right now, according to the...
According to some of them, yes.
Okay.
If they believed.
Any
Now,
comments?
if you said that to them, they might get all defensive about it.
Actually, there are Christians that believe everybody's in heaven. Everybody. So that too.
I believe they call it universalism, where if you could even go to hell. Now, I'm not a Christian, but you could even go to hell and you say, I repent, I accept Jesus as my Savior, bam.
No, a lot. There's different sects of different.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, that's the
different
that's
versions
the
of
mechanism.
universalism too, where some of them actually think that it doesn't matter what choice you have.
That's what I was at the end. I started off super fundy. I ended up as a universalist before I deconverted.
Okay.
And I thought everybody went to heaven, regardless of what they'd done or.
Well, isn't the everybody who goes to heaven, what my point was, it sort of deactivated the God's reward punishment. If everybody makes it in heaven, then yeah.
Well, I guess if the problem was I couldn't believe in an awful God, so I had to change God to make it work in my head.
Well,
so there's ways to back it up biblically, sorta, kinda. It's hard. You have to cherry pick, but you can do it.
Well, the last position I held as a full preterist, I was entertaining universalism, but I never fully accepted it. But there was full preterists that accepted universalism, and it wasn't the punishment in Scripture, like hell. It wasn't eternal conscious torment, and this is something I held as a full preterist. It was the judgment that fell upon Jerusalem in 70 AD. So you have so many different variances within Christianity. It's fucking nuts.
Sure. Okay. Does it ever bother Christians? I guess it surely would if God was alien logic. You know how they talk about alien logic? Like, we just do not understand any of the things, the behavior of a creature. Does that ever bother Christians? That idea that God is just so freaking unfathomable that
it didn't bother me.
I think that's a good their excuse, their number one excuse. So I don't think it bothers them. I think it's an advantage to them.
Pardon me.
For me, I think it was the opposite. In fact, it made me feel better, not because I didn't have to know everything. I was like, well, I can't understand it. I'm just going to imagine it's the best thing that I can't imagine, and that's it. And I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to worry about it.
When it comes to horrific things, all they have to do is, committed by their God, all they have to do is say, well, obviously he has a good reason.
Ways. Yeah, he works in mysterious ways. Okay. Anybody else want to, vamp on that subject? Free will? In my junk science and Fringe hangout.
You have free will.
I believe I have free will because there's, me. There's no God.
Yeah,
anybody think they don't have free will?
I'm really starting to think we don't.
If you don't have free will, then you don't.
I haven't
Here's the
heard
thing,
the secular argument.
But the real problem is defining it, because I still think we're autonomous beings. I still think we make decisions as humans, but I don't think that there's a conscious decision. I think it's chemically I'm still responsible for my decisions. I just don't feel like I know what I'm doing, if that makes sense. But it's a long, complicated, very
Okay, well, let
And
me
it's
ask
hard to explain.
rabbit hole. Yeah. Well, actually, it's pretty easy to explain. Do you want me to explain why? It's not that hard, actually. The way I see it, and because I haven't done much research on it, this is all just based on, years of me thinking really deeply about the subject. But I feel like people always do what they want to do most, and by that I don't mean desire to do. Like, I don't mean like your urges, right, or your cravings, but rather you take into account what you feel about it, what the consequences will be, like what's possible, what isn't. You take all of these things into account, almost subconsciously, like you don't even realize all of the factors that go into your decisions, and then you make a decision. And if you can't make a decision, you're flipping a coin, but you're still not making a decision, right? The coin's making the decision for you. Like, I have trouble thinking of a time when you actually make a conscious decision. I haven't been able to think of one in 10 years.
Do you think you're just sort of like overthinking yourself, though, Shar?
Probably, but I can't help it. I just get
Well,
lost in my thoughts.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So free will, and I think of it in entirely secular terms, of course. But so I think what you're talking about is the idea that since there's cause and effect, and that causal factors may lead us to may present us with certain things to choose from, that therefore they're determined. I think that's kind of not the correct way of looking at it. So,
well, I would never say determined, because I think there's so many. I think there's a lot of what do you call them, random factors too, right? I think there's a lot of randomness.
Okay, maybe. Well, it's not. It may not be random, literally speaking. It's random in terms that we can't predict it, but it's not really
random.
There's
actually random too. I mean, if you toss a coin, is that random?
Well, no, actually, there's causality in why the coin would come out a certain way, but it's very hard to predict, and to us, we perceive it as being random.
It's close enough.
No, if it suits our purposes for something,
it suits our purpose.
Random but it's not, strictly speaking, is not random in terms of cause and effect, and the way you flip a coin, and the way that the wind and everything else is blowing at that particular moment.
But what about at a quantum level? Don't things get random there?
Well, let's.
I know. I'm just saying.
Let's not use the Q word. Okay.
I know.
Q word aside.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, so basically, to me, argumentation is a validation of free will insofar as if we make an argument. Let's say we say our argument is that there is no such thing as free will, that I would hold is contradictory, because in making an argument we are claiming that we have looked at certain facts of reality and come to a conclusion, all of which requires volition. It requires looking at something. It requires making value judgments that the truth is necessary, including the truth of the fact that there is no such thing as free will. So if we don't have free will, any argument that we would make for or against free will would be actually meaningless, because we wouldn't be free to independently analyze the facts of reality and come to the proper judgments that it would take to describe that. So to me, in my view, free will is that we are able to choose to think or not to think, or to act and not to act. It doesn't mean that we will have unlimited choices, or that we will even have more than one or two good choices to make in a given case. If we're in a concentration camp, our choices are very limited, and we can't make those choices without consequence. But it doesn't mean that we aren't ultimately independent agents and we can't make choices. And the cause and effect thing, as far as the coin toss thing goes, and all that, those are all things that give us various alternatives. But those are simply, that's reality presenting itself to us. We still have a choice to act or to not act, or to feel like doing something or not feel like doing something, or any of those things.
Well, but what you just said there kind of ruined your whole argument, because you just said we have a choice to feel like doing something or not feel like doing something.
Right.
You can choose what you feel?
Um, to some degree, you can control what you feel, but if you feel tired, you can say, I'm tired, and therefore I don't want to do this particular activity because
So how are you
I'd
making
rather.
a choice?
Well, you're making a choice based on the facts of reality, some of which include your physical state.
Right, but that's my whole
Well,
point. You make choices based on reality, and reality is what it is. So is it really a choice?
Well,
Can
no, you could choose to nonetheless do something, even though you're tired, and maybe you would get rejuvenated. You could still make a choice, but the fact that uh, the fact that you're tired or weary or that you might need to sleep is just another factor in your decision making.
But then you're ruling out the other factor that makes you change your mind.
But you're not free of cause and effect and things that happen in reality, but you are free to make those choices within those. So you're not omnipotent that you can't say I choose not to be tired, but you can use your tiredness as a factor in making decisions about what you may or may not want to do, and that to me is the proper way of thinking about
Okay, guys,
free
let me
will.
ask you this. But doesn't it matter? Doesn't it matter if you have free will only if there's God, right? Only
Yeah,
if you
I
believe
agree.
God.
I don't think it matters at all.
Yeah.
What, you think it only
I think
matters
it
if there's a God?
can.
Well, we're in
Yeah.
I
Was that
think
what you said?
there was an article somebody posted. I can't remember. I think it might have been Sokka, but I can't remember. About how the free will debate and people coming away with it with the conclusion that we don't have free will, how it can actually even affect um, them moving forward and the decisions that they make and how they react and act.
It would turn ethics upside down if there was no such thing as free will. It would turn justice upside down. Any idea of responsibility, it would turn completely upside down, and none of those are dependent upon a God. That's I don't know where you got that.
Well, free will, the reason I brought up God is like that it matters. You know, the sort of intensity that we talk about
Well,
free will. To
right.
me, in my mind, you know, it's a question of accountability.
Well, but things that matter don't have to always matter to something external from you. They can also
Right.
matter to
Yeah, I mean,
something
accountability should still
internal.
matter to
So,
theist and
right.
atheist alike.
So that's kind of the religious mindset that we
I can
always
see
have
your
to
point.
be we always have to be proving ourselves to some external thing. Well, we don't. Ethics is about it's about
Well,
who we are.
I'll explain it to you in my thinking, guys. If there was no free will, then what would there be? There would either be genetics or culture, right? Genetics that somehow our genetic makeup makes us do what we do, or culture, like outside societal
Right.
pressures, do what we do, right? That's what I meant by
If there was hard determinism, it wouldn't matter what we thought, and we couldn't control what we thought, and we couldn't look at reality and make evaluations on it. We wouldn't have any realm of choice. We would be like robots, and we would just be talking. Uh, this would
true.
be utter nonsense. What we're doing here, it would be meaningless.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree with Jeff actually because, and I agree with you, Bunto, that it doesn't matter mostly without religion. I think in religion it serves as a justification for the folklore mechanism by which judgment occurs. That
Yeah.
God will judge you based upon your exercise of free will. But I do agree with Jeff because free will is really, when I think about it on a behavioral level, it is taken as an assumed truth.
Right.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have culpability, like Jeff was saying. You wouldn't have culpability for bad acts under the law and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we walk around every day assuming that we have free will. And then I wanted to say something about Shar too, but I don't know if I'm actually on the same page with Shar. But I think one way maybe of looking at it is if an individual has contemporary influences that make them want to take a particular or make a particular decision. So say they're a smoker, they're addicted to nicotine, they want to get the nicotine fix. But then they contrast that with something in their mind that they can model what the future might look like eventually without cigarettes. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then I think that might be. I was just trying to think about it, but what I'm trying to do is separate the present influences from potential future influences, and maybe push it away from just being, an inevitable.
No, but potential. I'm taking into account potential as well, because your brain does that. Your brain doesn't only consider the here and now. It thinks about consequences, right?
Right.
Not as well, because humans are pretty bad that way, but it does.
Right, but that's not each individual projection of the future is going to be different based upon their own experiences and perceptions of the right.
Everything is based on everything that's happened to you since the day you were born.
Mm-hmm. So that would mean right. So that would mean that perhaps if I'm following what you're saying, maybe we can encapsulate it this way. Perhaps in the future we'll have developed detection metrics and systems where we can evaluate this chemical will lead this person probably to make this decision. And if we could get down to the granular level, that maybe then what you're saying is we could establish there is no free will. It's just these are probably what people are going to decide based upon these chemicals, based upon these situations.
I don't know that we could ever say probably people. I don't even know that we could predict it, because I think there's so many. Some predictions, yes, but I'm saying there's so many variables, so many factors.
Okay,
right?
So you're saying that might not even be possible, but if
I'm not saying possible.
Why can't free will be one of the variables?
Right. Yeah.
Well, it could be. I just haven't seen any evidence of it personally.
Okay. So wait a minute, let me get clear. You're saying that
everywhere.
that you don't think there's free will?
I don't think there is. I see it as our brains are computers.
Right.
Everything that has happened to us in our lives, right? Everything we've heard, done, seen, it's all input. Some of it gets lost, right? It doesn't all get restored, like get stored, but it's all input. Our brain calculates based on the inputs and outputs the best solution.
Okay.
So can I ask
what it thinks
can I
is
ask
the best
you,
solution. Sorry.
Were you programmed to think that?
Yeah, probably.
So it has no bearing on reality. It's just what you're just uttering whatever you were programmed. You never looked at the ultimate. You never looked at the facts independently and made this critical judgment on your own. You were just programmed to think this, right? Based on determinism.
What do you mean programmed? Like my life? Everything that I've done.
Well, I'm saying if you were determined, then what you're saying is whatever you were programmed to say, it has no relationship to reality, right? I mean, if you're
I think it's the ultimate reality. I don't understand what you're saying.
Just the fact that humans can recognize the fact of what Jeff was saying, that we can recognize the fact that we are of a certain mind frame and that we can change it at any time if you really want to. You can believe a certain
If you
thing.
really want to. I love how you just said that, because that proves my point.
But I'm just saying that you have free will. You have the ability to even to completely change who you are. People can just do that. They can just believe things at will, and
right.
What I see is a planet with a bunch of free will machines all operating very, very sophisticatedly on individual levels, throughout the whole planet. I just see it as almost like a chaotic kind of mess of a mesh of wills and free will that is just competing all together.
Right,
yeah, sure.
and even more basic, if you do not have free will, then you were determined to think what you think, including what you think about this particular topic, and if what you think about this particular topic just has to do with your biochemical makeup, then it's utterly meaningless. It has no cognitive. Because you have to choose to focus on something and to judge it according to the facts of reality. And if you're incapable of doing that because of determinism, then what you're saying is nonsense. It has no cognitive content. If you can't choose to observe the facts of reality and report on them critically. I mean, that's the implication of what you're saying.
I don't understand what you're saying at all.
That is what consciousness.
I think she manifested her point pretty well. It's just different. It's just a different point from yours.
Well, it's a self-destructive argument.
No, it isn't. What you've done is actually make it sound completely different from what I'm thinking.
That's because I have free will, and if I did that on my own free will.
Yeah.
Jeff, you bastard!
It's almost like you weren't listening.
No, you're not. Well, I don't think you're. Pardon me, I don't mean to sound condescending, but I'm saying that the strictly determinist argument.
It's not strictly determinist.
Negates. Okay, so you're not.
I already tried to tell you that, but you told me it was, even though I said I don't think it is.
I'm sorry if I misunderstood that.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Okay.
I don't think it's determinist. I think the very fact that you're telling me stuff that I couldn't have predicted hearing changes my mind on things, right?
Yes. Okay.
So I'm always getting new input. There's no determinism. It's because I don't know what the inputs will be.
If I misunderstood that, I apologize.
Yeah.
I thought you were making the hard determinist.
No, not at all.
Okay. Maybe I misheard, or maybe I heard somebody else, some other voice that sounded like yours.
Okay, guys, so which do you think has a greater bearing on free will? Genetics or societal pressure? Hi, Lou.
What's a greater influence?
Yeah, greater influence. You believe your own genetical makeup?
Probably
your own
societal
hormones?
pressure, probably. I would say.
I would say early societal pressure, though, because I'm sure it has more of an influence on you when you're young.
Well, my siblings have about the same genetics that I do, as far as I can tell, and they are very different in their outlook and their dispositions and all those things.
That's true.
So I would say environmental. My own experiences were more shaping of my volitional tendencies.
What I'm asking is the nature versus nurture question.
Oh no.
Is it an old hasty?
Nurture. Okay.
It's both. It's both.
It's a mixture of both, or it's more society?
Well, I think we're sort of born tabula rasa, as far as I can tell. So I would say it's more.
What do you think creates more mass murderers, genetics or society?
Yeah.
Society.
Well, except a psychopath. That's not society that produces a psychopath, is it?
That's genetics.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have to prove that. You have to prove that a psychopath is actually genetically different, and I don't know.
Well, they have different brain chemistry, but we don't know how that forms,
well, we
right?
say that, but I don't know that that's actually been established. That's been theorized, but I don't know. I have a feeling that it has to do more with environment and nurture in the absence of pathological evidence to the contrary.
Who here is familiar with Steven Pinker?
I've heard of him.
Yeah.
I've heard of him. I don't know.
Just to point one thing out, we already know that humans are not tabula rasa.
Okay.
Humans are born with instincts just like every other animal.
Right,
So,
a lot fewer instincts probably, but probably.
No, the same. We are just mammals like all other mammals. And
well, some mammals are born, they know how to build dams and stuff like that, and I don't think we know how to do that, but I would accept that we're born.
build dams?
Oh, a beaver.
No, like a beaver knows how to build dams that,
Innately.
Innately, yeah, we don't know things like that about our survival.
Yeah, we actually do.
Well, we know how to eat.
Really? Come on.
Does anybody remember when they were a kid? I don't know, maybe you grew up in a city and you didn't have this opportunity, but I distinctly remember I grew up country, and me and my brother, we'd go tromping around the woods, and we had a stream in the backyard. We did not have to figure this out. It was like, ooh, stream, rocks, put them all in the stream and see what happens. We do have instincts. We know how to do these things. We're not as good.
Well, I think you figured out how to do it. I don't think you were born with that.
Well, no, but what about like the fear of snakes and spiders? That's pretty innate.
That's genetic.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of spiders.
Not everyone is, but a lot of people are, and
Or
they
high
basically
legends.
show.
High
They can
legends.
basically show though that people that have never seen a spider or a snake in their life can still be afraid of it.
But birds know how to build nests, and they do things that are very predictable in ways that human beings are not. So it's not the same thing.
What's not predictable about humans?
Human beings don't know how to build shelter for themselves. Human beings.
What?
have to learn
That's
how
not
to.
true.
Characteristic of a human.
Were you born and you knew how to build a house? Come on.
Well, no, but a baby bird doesn't know how to build a nest either.
A baby bird learns how to build a nest. Birds build nests automatically. They don't build townhouses or row houses or they build the same kind of
So you're
grassy
saying
nest, and they have for thousands of years, and they have more innate tendencies toward their survival than humans.
they have a more limited tendency, is what
Okay.
it is. It's more limited.
Yes, they are limited. You don't see birds building townhouses or condominiums. They build nests, same as they did thousands of years ago.
Actually, no. Birds have evolved their nest building. It's called evolution. And I want to get back to the human.
Yeah, I agree with evolution, but they really haven't evolved that much. They're not building row houses or condos.
Actually, I can go dig up research where we've shown nest evolution. But I want to get back to the human instinct thing. So this is from Steven Pinker. He wrote a book called The Blank Slate on just this topic.
Right.
Very comprehensive with a lot of studies and psychology tests, experiments being done. One of them was on babies.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what the test was. They had a table, and at one end the table was opaque. You could not see through it, right?
Yeah.
Halfway down, the table was clear. It looked like it was glass. You could see through it, and so from the baby's point of view, even though the table went on, they perceived it as that being a cliff. Okay, so these are babies. We're talking they are just barely able to crawl. So what they did is they got a bunch of the babies with their mothers, and they put the babies on the opaque end of the table, the mothers on the glass end of the table, and they had the mothers call to their babies, and the babies almost all, there's always exceptions when you're talking about genetics, but the vast majority of the babies would crawl towards their mom and stop where it became glass, because almost every human has an instinct to fear heights. It's a survival instinct.
True.
And this is all behavioral studies like from the 80s and before. A lot of these things we don't, it's if you've studied it, it's just common knowledge, but not a lot of people do study behavioral sciences.
Well, I remember a real wacko was B.F. Skinner. Do you remember that name? He was a behaviorist.
Yeah.
No, he has a bad reputation because, his experiments, he was wrong on some of his conclusions, but all of his experiments actually did prove the things he wanted to prove. He was wrong when he extrapolated his experiments with the dogs and birds onto humans, because he believed that humans were tabula rasa, and he was wrong on that.
Yeah, I think I said from the offset there are some instincts and there are some perhaps natural inclinations human beings, but they're far human beings mostly are rational beings. We mostly survive on our cognitive abilities as opposed to lower level animals who survive purely on a stimulus response level or on whatever instincts they may have evolved into having, such as building nests and building dams or whatever. It's unlikely that beavers are going to get together and form a committee and decide to build a.
Of course not. But let me ask you this:
a condominium complex or something like that.
Let me ask the gang this: just you, Jeff. Where were you born, in the city or the country?
Was born in the suburbs. Always have lived kind of in the suburbs, or the exurbs, as we now call it.
Okay. Do you go with this trope that people who live in rural are less intelligent than people that come from the urban city?
Less natively intelligent? No, I don't think that's true.
Well, what do you mean by that qualification? I mean, are people hicks who live out in the country? Aren't they?
Well, are people less worldly that live in the country? Yes, I would generally say that, although there are some exceptions. I have lived in the country, but I have found some very shrewd people who are very have a lot of native intelligence. Where they direct it is perhaps different from what you find in the city, but I don't think they're natively less intelligent.
Yeah, there's other factors like education,
Yeah, they're
availability of books and internet and television and that sort of thing.
yeah. I found generally people were less cosmopolitan, less worldly, but they, as far as having native intelligence about and how they applied it, it was pretty impressive. I mean, I couldn't hold a candle to.
I think a lot of country people have more of a survival, more abilities and capabilities to survive if something catastrophic was to happen to the majority of human populace than people who grow up in the city. Now, I'm not saying that's a generalization or anything. I'm just saying a lot of country people know how to live off the land. They know how to hunt. They know how to actually survive if things were to go bad.
Well, I went to a high school reunion with some friends, and I was really amazed at how, and I'm not talking country bumpkin stuff. So some of these people had really successful businesses that were they were nationwide, if not worldwide, and because they weren't. I attributed some of it to their not being in a city and not being as conforming as one might be in a city, to where they took risks that I probably wouldn't have thought to take, or they got into some businesses that I wouldn't have thought of getting into. So it's a different dynamic, but no, I would not say their native intelligence was any less than mine, or anybody else that I would encounter in a suburban or urban.
Yeah, and I would say,
yeah,
having traveled quite a bit in Asia, I mean, I've been in a lot of rural communities where people don't have a lot of money and they don't have much of an education, but they sure are innovative. And
yes, exactly.
They do a lot with a small amount, and in a crisis, they're probably going to do better than someone like me, right?
Agreed. Yes,
yeah.
That's exactly my impression.
Yeah.
Well, how about this? People in the country are all xenophobes who hate outsiders. True?
False.
No.
Like, if I took a midnight
I would
ride,
say all things being no, I
Watch your words, Jeff. I'm a good old country girl.
The smaller the group of individuals.
There are cities like that, and there are actually countries that don't like outsiders. So
yeah,
it's not just rural.
It would be a generalization, but on my own experiences, there's more of a people who live in these small towns, even if they become very successful and very worldly, there still is an outsider element to their thinking that I think is probably more prevalent.
I would suggest it's culture. It's not where you live.
It is culture.
Yeah.
It is culture, but
everybody seems to have at least a little bit of a tribal mindset, and I don't think.
No, I agree.
Wrong, and I don't think it's wrong, in a small sense. When it's a big issue, that's when it's wrong. I would say.
I didn't say it was wrong, but I said it was.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Like where I live, like here where I live, everybody's from someplace else. so we don't have any of this. So you're from, where are you from, kind of thing. I mean, it's a point of conversation.
Territorialism, okay.
But when you get into a place where people tend to not move around as much, yeah, there's a sense, because we were talking, and it was nothing malicious, but I do remember talking to a group of people from this very small town where I happened to graduate high school, and they were talking about trips to Mexico, and they were really like fish out of water in those places, and they weren't denigrating them or anything like that, but they just, to me, it was like Mexico is like, part of America. It's not that different to me, but to them it was very different, and I think part of that has to do with their generally having lived in the same place where they lived 40 years ago when I was still in high school with these people. I moved away, but I think that's.
Well,
I think that tends to be the case with smaller.
Let's agree that we're not in the Middle Ages, okay? In
Right.
the Dark Ages, when like a town, if you walked into a town, it was like you were some towns only had villages, only had 2 visitors per year. You know what I mean? That's how isolated
Yeah.
things were in the Middle Ages,
Yeah.
and
And,
they would
and
probably string you
right.
up if you're any shade darker. Like tonight, if I decided to, hop in my multicolored gay pride bus and take a midnight ride through the deep south, I'm pretty sure I'd run into some friction.
If you were in a rural area, yeah. If you were in a major city, I don't think you'd have any. Like
Okay, so
if
I
you were
mean,
in Atlanta, if you were in New Orleans, obviously.
I'm in Atlanta, and everything outside of the 385 circle is deliverance. And there's a big difference. It's liberalness. There's a big LGBT community in Atlanta. There's a
Yeah.
large black community. There's a large white community. It's very mixed. And then as soon as you head out of 385, the retarded kids playing the
Is that
banjo.
the that's the perimeter, right?
Yeah, it's 385.
Yeah.
okay, so we just have to admit that there are these things in our social sphere of xenophobes and backwards people who could just attack us purely for being different. Would we all agree?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually think the whole tribalism topic is actually really interesting because it's human behavior that we are actively watching it evolve within our own lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
Humans are actually evolving. If you look like you've been talking about, you go back to the entire human evolutionary history, humans for almost 200,000 years evolved to survive in small tribes of like less than 300 people. So our minds actually cannot handle more than 300 to 500 people.
Interesting.
Right, for tracking, knowing people. And then if you look at, with modern cities and high density populations, you'll see the range. First, you'll see the range of human behavior on this particular. I don't know if you call it instinct or whatever. Like you mentioned, country people a lot more xenophobic. You go to cities, and you'll have people that are campaigning for, the human rights, for LGBT, for right, and all that. And then you got the extreme phenotypes where you have people advocating for the rights of trees and stuff too, which is just an extension of the whole in-group, out-group thing. So it's an interesting topic to study. Oh,
Yeah,
Yvonne.
We
I
see it
wanted
here.
to jump in here because I wanted to talk about this a little bit too, as far as self-interest. This is where I see that there's not that it's not wrong to have at least an inner circle tribal mindset, and this is because of self-interest. If you're not concerned about your inner circles, your family, your children, then basically you're detrimental to your own self.
Okay.
You're going to eliminate your survival if you're not willing to work with those who are close to you and around you, or at least you're going to put yourself at risk of that.
Well, and we see this all the time. There's a shooting at Sandy Hook School in Connecticut. Everybody relates to that. It's very close to many of us here in the U.S., but we hear about the same thing happening in Iraq or Afghanistan, or even many times more fatalities, and we just don't we just don't pay attention to it. It's about proximity. Unfortunately, it's sad. We have to overcome that. And we see it on Google Plus, The
Okay,
internet
they talk
atheists
about-
think this, and
They talk about personal privacy being eroded. I mean, so that is a good thing, right? We're eliminating the tribal society and going more towards,
I think it's a good thing to a certain extent. I think people need to be careful eliminating it completely. Like I said, if you don't have your inner circles, then you're going to put yourself at risk for not surviving, not being able
right,
to
you need your own support group and all of that. So, but yeah, we shouldn't be thinking along racial
constant
lines.
surveillance, right?
Oh, you said privacy?
Yeah, the privacy is being eroded because we're having cameras set up everywhere. People are having drones and flying around so they can see what's going on. Well, isn't that, we're going away from tribalism to just total neural connectivity that I can watch what Eve is doing and she can watch what I'm doing.
Well, the opposite of tribalism isn't surveillance.
Why isn't it?
It's
Well, surveillance is violating the privacy of individuals, and you can be non-tribal
All
and
that
still be an
surveillance
individual.
is a replacement for proximity.
well, I look at this differently. I don't think
I don't know.
technology is eliminating tribalism at all. I think it's redefining what individuals choose as their tribe. We're all here on YouTube and stuff. I consider myself a part of the atheist community. That's my
Yeah.
tribe, and
Or
everybody's
YouTube
got
too.
their own tribe, even on the internet.
All right. So there's still some utility to having tribes, right? While we're going towards a total all-awareness society.
Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, like what's going on here in the side chat talking about selfishness. The ultimate good interest, self-interest, requires a selfishness that is also selfless. You have to work. We're a social species, so we have to work with one another, and so we're going to have certain inner circles to do that.
Right. I'll give you that.
Yeah,
But I mean, how do we explain surveillance then, gang?
surveillance is a violation of your.
But Jeff, we're
Rights.
going towards surveillance like a dragster. I mean, we're making
What is the easiest
So-
way to get rid of it? It surveillance seems to be working very well.
I mean, it's here to stay. You have to
Well,
admit.
I don't know for whom it's working. It's working for power seekers and power holders. It's not really working very well for individuals who.
Well, that
Well,
not
are we
disagree
talking
with
about
that.
just
I mean,
due to
we're
tribalism?
using surveillance right now with one another, so
Right.
I wouldn't say that it's just the powers to be or
Well-
powers,
I think
Well, I think of that.
If there's voluntary, like it's voluntary that I turn my camera on and I reveal myself to everybody to the extent that they want to see me, but that's one thing. But the opposite of reaching out and expanding and meeting other people is not synonymous with having cameras pointed at you involuntarily by certain people.
Well,
By
that
mistake.
depends on what you mean by voluntarily, because to you may be against it. For me, I may not.
I don't know. I was going to poke in here for a second.
Go ahead.
So
Oh, go ahead.
well, here we're voluntarily having cameras pointed at us, but if there are cameras pointed at us everywhere in society, that's totalitarianism. That's not.
Well, I mean, you guys can flavor it any which way, but we're going towards that. I mean, we're making
Well,
more.
I didn't say we weren't going towards that, but I'm saying how are you conflating that with enlightenment or reaching out to other people?
Well, I'm not saying. What I'm trying to say is that
Or how are you contrasting that with tribalism?
Okay, well, let me explain. What Lou said is our minds started at 300 people, right? Right, Lou?
Right.
Didn't you say that? We came at 300 people, and now we're evoluting towards more and more awareness of each other. That's the way I took what you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so the awareness comes from voluntary interaction. It doesn't come from
That's not
chasing
the way.
people around with cameras.
No, but wait. But guys, we're making more cameras now than guns. I mean, we want our cops to have cameras. We want everything to be on camera.
Yeah, I love
That
the
seems to
idea
be
of
a
cops having
non-sequitur.
cameras.
What? Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I would like the cops to have cameras too, although they
Okay,
can
what I'm trying to
turn
say
them
is
off
we're
whenever
going-
they do evil things. Still, but
That's true. But what I'm trying to say is we're going towards a more total awareness society. That each one of us knows what the other person
Right.
is doing.
yeah. But okay. So there's awareness like I meet you, we interact, and then there's awareness I sneak behind your house and I look in your window at night. That's a different kind. That's not the kind of awareness we're talking about. Then that's the kind of awareness that surveillance cameras are. That's unsolicited.
Surveillance cameras are in public. They're not. in
Surveillance cameras are not about understanding people better or not.
Well,
They're about surveilling people.
I'll give you that, Jeff. But would you not say that our privacy has been eroded greatly since all
Well,
our
no, of course I would say that, but I'm not saying it's because of outreach and because of.
Well, okay, I'll
because
move
we're
on. I
meeting
didn't say it's
for-
necessarily because of our outreach, but it's because of our
Well,
technology.
you were saying it was the opposite of tribalism, where
It
we're,
is the opposite of tribalism. I mean,
No.
tribalism.
no
a traditional
surveillance is not.
tribalism.
No, globalism is the opposite of tribalism, not surveillance.
Okay.
Yeah,
you can
I
call it
would agree with that.
globalism,
Yeah.
but I mean, how do you remove globalism from the technology? Explain that.
Explain it.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, the reason we are a global society is because of our technology.
I think that technology kind of, as far as us communicating, that might have a
Okay.
purpose with eliminating, but technology itself isn't the reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Because we're able to.
there's properly applied technology and there's aggressively and maliciously applied.
Yeah,
Knowledge.
technology in and of itself is not good or bad. It's
Right.
Well, I'm not qualifying.
But,
I'm just.
I mean,
telling you that's-
people communicate by phone, but people also commit terrible crimes by phone. So they're not the same. You know, it's not. Oh, well, if we're going to communicate, then that's part of all this terrible crime. How do you reconcile that? No,
Okay.
people are misusing phones in some cases, and people are using them for good purposes in other cases. So.
And yeah, I wanted to point out the actual human nature on this issue, if I got time, I'll address the whole
Go ahead.
surveillance thing. But we require a certain amount of privacy. We have that
Who
privacy.
says that? Scientists?
Yeah, this is back to
Scientists
behavioral
prove
science.
that.
Huh?
Okay.
Well,
Scientists prove that humans need a specific amount of privacy. That's interesting.
Well, psychology does as well.
I'll give you good examples. Out of taking a large sample size of an adequate sample size of the population, how many people have no problems having sex in public?
Cavemen, millions
the
of years
vast
ago, had
majority-
no problems having sex in public.
Do you know that?
So, Bunto, what are
No, but
all-
I mean, it just makes sense.
No,
It makes
no.
sense that
Bunto,
privacy is not
what are
required
your-
for human interaction.
What
I-
are
can
your PIN numbers? Can we have all your PIN numbers if you don't need
Well, I mean,
privacy?
today, of course, is a different thing. Privacy has value today, but privacy in our inchoate beginnings had no.
Right.
I disagree. I think
Bunto,
I think it's
Bunto,
always an issue because it's also ingrained in certain personalities. There are people that are introverts. They need time away from society, away from people.
we need privacy to protect us, to protect our property. So, in other words, Bunto, like, what is your mom's maiden name? What is your What are your passwords?
But Jeff, I understand that. But what I'm trying to say is that in the first people, their, what would you say, level of privacy was nowhere near ours. I mean, they had little utility for privacy.
But what makes you?
Most showered together.
That idea?
They showered in groups. They hunted in groups. They did everything.
They did everything.
And actually,
I only agree people don't need.
So you don't think that they ran off in the woods by themselves alone at any point?
actually though,
Later on they did, but at the beginning they didn't.
let me just interject here. Like, having traveled a bunch, I have been in bathrooms where it's just a floor, a tile floor, with a drain in the middle.
Yeah.
And all the women go in there at the same time in this
They
big
squat.
room, and you squat shoulder to shoulder, touching each other, and pee. No privacy. And that's very common in a lot of countries. So
How much, hey, Shar, how much does that cost?
Eric, behave.
It is good for your colon to squat. I've since read. So.
I actually having traveled, I'm a big fan of the squatting because you don't have to touch anything.
Yeah, we were designed to squat. It ends up.
It works well. You don't want to touch anything.
Well,
trust me.
it actually makes sense with us being primates.
It does have a certain merits, but no, we don't really have a right to privacy or anything like that. I wouldn't put that, but we certainly have a right to secure whatever it is we think ought to be private, and there are things in order to protect our property. We need a certain amount of property.
Yeah.
We need to have PIN numbers. We need to have We don't want to tell everybody our mother's maiden name or our first pet or any of these things that can help people hack into our accounts. So we
Jeff, the high society has no need for any of that.
Okay. Yeah. No, I can give you lots of examples on the whole privacy thing. Again, going back to the mating habits, why do people spend so much money on porn?
Why?
Because not very many people are willing to do it. Most humans are not willing to mate on camera in front of an audience. So
Well, nowadays there's an explosion of amateur porn.
Because that's all in the home, and what it's doing is it's bypassing our natural aversion to do that in public. So yes, it's public.
Well, and I think that a lot of the rise in it is because of its eroticness.
Sure.
Because it's not
more of it.
Hey, Bunto, how many times have you had sex in public, buddy? I'm just asking, off the top of your head.
Let me see. Well, I've had sex outdoors. Maybe
in public? With a lot of people around?
Nobody watching, but I've had sex outdoors.
Oh, that don't count, dude.
Well, I'm sorry. Tonight, I'll go to the truck stop. No, I haven't had. What I'm trying to say, guys, is you can say, oh, this scientist says that privacy is essential for humans, but then I know that the first early men, there's no need for privacy. Just need for survival.
How do you know that, Bunto?
Because I'll tell you how I know it, Eric.
You assume it.
No, listen to me.
You've got the privacy. Hold on. You got the system put together, and you're just pulling assumptions out of the air, bro.
No, if you let me finish, I'll tell you why. Because if somehow privacy inhibited our survivability, then we'd be done as a race. See what I mean? So obviously our survivability came before privacy.
What I heard you just say didn't make much sense.
Yeah. Did it make any sense to anybody else that if our survivability is in the forefront for us to survive as a species, then privacy must be put aside?
No, privacy is a survival instinct.
Oh, no.
All right, say that there's like 5 of us left in a cave, and there's really no room to get around, and we got to procreate. Are you going to, go
insist
off?
On privacy?
Yeah, what if there's not really any way to get privacy? You still going to do it, or what,
True. Actually,
there's already hypotheses, and I don't know if they've developed into theories or not, but we have front-facing eyeballs, right?
Yes.
So there's all different kinds of way you can do the job, right? But you can go off into the woods and you can have privacy and you can still have safety because one person's looking one way and the other person's looking the other way. And you still have security at the same time as you have your privacy.
I will still...
You can also have lookouts. They don't necessarily have to be watching to have lookouts.
So I have to have a lookout to have sex out in the woods so I can be private?
Well, I think we're talking about in the days where we survived off the land. I mean, that's a little bit different than now.
Yeah. You have your community where everybody lives and cooks and sleeps, but
can you not understand Lyric's point? It's saying if you're unable to have privacy, you still have to survive.
It destroys your ability to survive, actually. It destroys the human mind when you don't have privacy.
I just cannot see that. I don't see how privacy can inhibit our survivability.
Well,
I mean,
then you're not an introvert.
Okay.
Because we would be a very fragile species, Eve. There could be plenty of situations where we wouldn't have privacy.
An introvert is not a fragile person, if that's what you're...
Okay, to address this privacy thing again, who wants to volunteer? Who would be perfectly happy living in prison for the rest of their life? Because in prison you have zero privacy. I don't know anybody who goes to prison and likes it. Even if they weren't violated or harmed.
But I mean,
here's the thing.
Follow your logic.
People are still individuals, and they still, like me. I enjoy and I desire to keep my individualness, to be who I am, regardless of everyone else. So me, there are times where I've taken a break from Google Plus. I mean, there's times where I have to get away from other people except maybe my children,
Sure.
which I even have to get away from them sometimes. I come to my room and tell them to give me an hour. So I think that there are certain personalities, if you take that privacy away, they will go mentally insane.
Yeah.
And I would be one of them.
I will say, on the whole, if you took away people's privacy, they could still survive. On the whole, certain people, yes, if you took away their privacy, they probably would go insane. Now,
Everybody.
just to answer Lou's thing, well, I mean, following your idea, you would think that just imprisoning people would be, make them go crazy or a death sentence for them. But no, there's people that have long lives in prison, Lou.
It's, oh gosh, what do you even call that? That was that movie.
And then I also thought of this one. Remember, a young woman decided she wanted to live in a cave for a year, and she tried it, and then she just committed suicide, like right after she
Yeah,
came
but
out.
that's extreme because we're still a social species. We do
Right.
need each other.
So I was thinking, yes, there's that case where too much privacy ends up in killing somebody.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that.
We need balance as our species. It's just how we're made. I mean, how we are, our genetics. We need social interaction and privacy. We need everybody's requirements are different because human behavior always, behavior for anything runs on a spectrum. Everybody where they sit on that spectrum is going to be different for the individual. But as a species, we all have certain requirements and needs for both social interaction and.
I don't particularly care to take a shit in front of everybody. Just
Well,
saying.
I know, Karen, but the thing is, like, I'm sure that we could train somebody to forgo their privacy.
I have another example to explain how lack of privacy is extremely detrimental psychologically to humans. And I know Lyrics will understand this based on what he said, but military experience. The vast majority of your time in the military, you don't have privacy.
Right.
Now here's the thing. If you look at the behavior of soldiers, when they are released for the weekend, after the weekend, Friday end of day formation, 100% of soldiers, their activities involve privacy. They get away from the place that they don't have privacy, whether it's going to their family so they can have private time with their family, or a lot of soldiers just lock themselves in their barracks rooms so they can get their privacy that way. Me and a lot of soldiers, so I'm not even unique in this aspect, what do? We get off post, away from the military, away from the oppression, and we go and get shit drunk as soon as we possibly can. And that's the reason why alcoholism is such a big problem in the military, I think, is because there's not enough privacy.
Anyone?
I think that they force feed you alcohol in the Army. I think it's a coping mechanism to deal with the lack of privacy and with the memories that you get,
Self-medication?
Yeah.
Very, very much. They force religion and beer on you constantly.
I'm drinking right now, by the way.
I'd kind of like to know, because I was kind of checking Google Scholar here, I'm not finding anything. I'd kind of like to know how privacy works for, apes and monkeys and things,
Oh, there's a big one on that one, and I don't know what book it was in or what research paper, but chimps, our nearest relatives, they have documented privacy requirements for chimps. When chimps get sick and they're about to die, they instinctively go off into the forest alone. They want to die in private. And that's why I say it's a survival instinct. If somebody's sick and dying, they have this instinct to get away from the tribe, so whatever it is that's killing them doesn't infect the tribe. So it's instinctive even.
Okay, so you bring up a lot of scientific basis for the need for privacy. Could we use that to, try to reverse some of these surveillance laws that we have? That somehow the invasiveness on our privacy would affect the mental health of our society overall?
I say yes and no. In a well-functioning democratic system, absolutely. But I don't see America as a free nation anymore. I think we're full-blown fascism right now. And under that system, nothing's going to get fixed until you get a better system.
See, and I don't know what the extent of, like, because I know there's cameras everywhere. Like, we have them up here in Calgary too. Like downtown, there's cameras on every street corner. But they're not being actively monitored, right? Like, I mean, there's hookers on the corner, and there's not cops coming because they see them on camera. They're more of they're not preventative. They're meant more, well, maybe they're preventative in the sense that they're there, so people might not do something knowing that they're on camera, but in the sense that if something happens, we can go back and look at the tape.
Yes.
And that's a little bit different than being monitored, if you know what I mean. Right? Like, I don't know what to say to it exactly.
Is there a legal basis for that, Eric Pyong?
Hello. What's going on? What'd you say?
Is there a legal basis for, claiming that we're not monitoring you, but in case something goes wrong, we can have the tape available? Not that they're 24/7 surveillance of us.
Right.
They're saying they're not monitoring you, but we're just keeping track.
Not to my knowledge. I mean, it's a difference without a distinction. But I understand that Shar thinks it's different. So
well,
I think it is a little different.
I don't think it's like legally different or anything like that. I'm just saying from my own personal perspective, I'm kind of okay with it if I make the assumption that no one's actually looking at the monitors. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. It's just a mental thing.
Like if I'm starting to have phone calls with you on a business level, Eric, and then I start recording them without your knowledge, then I break the law, or is that
depends on the state?
Yeah, it depends on the state.
Yeah, it should be a felony.
California, you have to tell the people that you're recording them. If you are, Illinois, you don't. But there are some exceptions. Illinois, you can't record cops, for example. So it just depends.
That's recording cops. Why not?
I don't know.
Because we find, their negligence, criminal negligence.
Well, it probably has a lot to do with, cop unions and their influence, and it was a law that was. I have no idea why it was, but it probably might not make any sense. The reason that they give. Go ahead.
Police officers are public officials, so there should be no problem with strapping a camera onto them.
Activities.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique law in Illinois. You can actually videotape them. You just can't videotape them with audio. So, in all states, all states are kind of I'm not going to say they're all unique, but they have different rules.
I think Illinois and my state, Maryland, are the worst. I don't think you can photograph them at all here, and it's horrendous.
Yeah.
Ew.
Like that's not even a part of the whole privacy thing. This is more of a civil rights violation going on.
Right.
That's why I don't understand. Okay, for someone to argue that they're okay with cops having cameras because these are public officials, but they're not okay with surveillance cameras in public areas. I don't really get that. It seems to me kind of special pleading.
No, I mean I understand how you say it seems that way, but it's really not. It's for an individual wearing the cam. For one, it's not filming the individual; it's filming their interactions.
Yeah.
Well, it has to do with an employer-type employee relationship too. Like at most companies, I don't know about you guys, but like anything you do on the internet can be monitored, right? Anything you do on your computer, anything you can do when you're at work can be monitored.
Yeah, but that's known, so it's not a violation.
Right, exactly. I'm not saying it's a violation. I'm just saying a cop, though, is at work.
Right.
So.
Right. And they monitor you. There's speed cameras everywhere. There's
traffic.
I just got a ticket. There's this road that I know has speed cameras, and I swear I used cruise control. I must have zoned out at one point because I got a speed cam ticket. It's in a neighboring county that has speed cameras everywhere. So yeah, they want to surveil you constantly, but Oh, God forbid you should.
I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that when it's in public areas. What would be your argument against that, Jeff?
Against the speed camera?
Just against surveillance in public.
Oh, no, I think when you're in public, you don't have a reasonable expectation of privacy. I mean, I think that's true. I think a speed camera, the problem with that is they take a picture of the car, and it doesn't matter who's driving it. You're not facing your accuser, so I think there are problems with that in terms of the legality. But I don't see the problem of being if I'm in the public square.
Why do you have to face your accuser? I mean, if you're breaking the law in public, I don't understand that.
Well, because it's not proven. They've taken a picture of my car. They don't know that I'm driving it. They don't know what the circumstances are.
Because the car belongs to you. I mean, that's.
Well, isn't technically the ticket issued to the registered owner?
Well,
not
technically,
the driver?
yes, it is, but
Yeah.
that's not really a great legal
Well, don't
standard.
lend your car to anybody.
Right. I mean, you have the responsibility.
Well, lending my car to somebody is
but that
illegal.
that is your property. You have the responsibility of that property. So I don't understand why.
If you lend your car to someone and they speed, you give the ticket to them. And then if they don't pay it, you never lend it to them again.
Can't
you actually take someone to court for that?
Speeding as a victimless crime, first of all. I mean, I wasn't caught recklessly driving or anything like that. It's a victimless crime. No, actually, if you take it to court, the problem with taking it to court. So if I just pay it right now, so it's like $40.
No, I'm not talking about taking it to disputing the actual ticket. I'm talking about if someone else was driving, you could take them to court if they refuse to pay it.
Here's the problem. In a lot of states, if you take it to court, it will become a moving violation, and if you lose, then you will get points and stuff. Now, if you just pay it, you don't get points. So they've made it so you really can't contest them without really putting yourself in harm's way and perhaps getting points and the everything that goes with that, the risk of higher insurance rates.
Well,
and I can, system.
Yeah, I can understand there's some flaws in the system. I certainly am not saying there ain't no flaws. I just don't.
Well, my original point was that the cops are taking pictures of us all over the place. There's pictures of us at every intersection, and yet they don't want to be. They don't want to be photographed, and was originally just talking about the standard. But but if you also want to talk about the traffic camera boondoggle, that's basically taking pictures of cars and just collecting money off of people, and not on the grounds of any kind of reckless driving or endangering. It's whatever arbitrary speed limit there was.
There's a reason why they have speed limits. Speeding in certain areas is dangerous.
There's a public reason why there's speed limits, and there's a private reason, and in some cases, like where I'm talking about, is a very long stretch of road, and I have actually used my cruise control to stay on the speed limit, and somehow I still get a ticket. There's some place where, and I'm not a speeder, I cannot drive down this road without getting I don't even go that way anymore. I mean, it's ludicrous. There's some speed trap there that's not even marked that I get tickets at. So these things, no, they're not innocuous, and they're not about reckless driving. They're about revenue.
Well, I can say, yeah, I agree that they're when you talked about the points thing, if you take it to court, if you dispute it, the points thing, and that being a huge flaw in our system, and that does make it uneasy that we are being surveillance, because if they're going to use shit like that in a way just to get money, that's a problem.
That's what they're doing.
No.
In these regions, yes.
Yeah, let me jump in here. It's not just to collect money. Germany has had the camera speed traps. They actually do speeding tickets. Like in my state, the cameras will only give you tickets if you run a red light. That's all they give a ticket for. In Germany, they've been doing this for years now, and it reduces costs, and it reduces the auto fatalities. It's proven. It works. It keeps people alive.
Actually, in our area, they're finding that the red light cameras actually create more hazards because people slam on the brakes where they would otherwise maybe feel
yeah.
safe to go through a yellow light. So it's not conclusive at all here, and it's possibly indicative that they actually cause more accidents than.
Yeah, let me finish my point though, okay? Um, for us in America, it's a new technology. Okay, if you go to countries that are just now where people are just now able to buy cars like the average citizen, their accidents rates are through the roof because they don't have a culture of knowing how to drive. They're not used to it. They haven't grown up in a driving culture, so their accidents rates are atrocious. So yes, it's a new technology, and until the next generation is growing up and driving their own selves, you will see a slight increase because we are not used to that technology. But now that's why I would argue for the having the traffic cams and whatnot.
That's your argument for them?
But I also have arguments against
it.
Okay. In America, the reason I'm against it is because they're doing it all wrong. Like they're doing the whole camera ticket things completely wrong, and like you said, it actually makes an increase in accidents.
It does. And
So I would argue against it because it's being implemented wrong. If you implement it properly, like we know it works, then we know it'll reduce accidents. Then it would be a good thing. You implement it wrong, and of course it's not going to get you the results you want.
Well, but it's implemented right if you want to collect revenue, which it's doing, and that's
actually no.
Yeah,
those cameras cost more money to maintain than the money they get from the tickets. They are a waste of money.
That's not what I've been. That's not the tracking on this that I've been reading.
No, we actually just got them in my city, so I know for at least in my city, they don't recover the amount of money they spend on maintenance of those cameras. It's
the camera companies get a little bit of a take on each ticket that's written. So they're paid for, and that's supposedly to cover replacement costs and all of those things. But no, they're huge revenue makers around here. I don't know where you live, but
I don't think it's solely the motivation is solely based on revenue, though.
No. There's always a certain segment that thinks, oh, this is going to promote safety and all this stuff. But there's also we had in Maryland. This is kind of comical. So we have two license plates on our cars. We have a front and a back license plate, and they were talking about just saving metal and having just one license plate in the back, which would be really cool. A lot of cars don't have a place for a front license plate and all that. So they were talking about doing that, and but they ran the numbers, and it ends up that the cost of making the front license plate is less than the fines that they collect for giving people tickets for not having a front license plate, so they wouldn't save any money. So they're going to keep the front license plate.
Yeah, it's called a.
So this is how they calculate. It's about revenue, and in this recession, places are revenue starved, and these are sources of revenue. Taking pictures of cars, people paying the tickets without tying up the courts, because if you do tie up the courts, you're going to end up costing the system more and all this kind of stuff. So people like me, so I go into my neighboring county. I don't even live there, and I normally wouldn't give them a dime, but I drive through there occasionally. I always get a ticket when I'm on this one goddamn road.
It's a speed trap.
I'll
give you all that, Jeff.
It's a revenue trap.
Let me ask you all this. Okay, so we are going towards the Toll Awareness Society. Would all of you be willing to sell your privacy at a certain price? Since you're going to lose it anyway, you might as well make money selling your privacy, your intimacy.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
Well, Jeff, I mean, if you knew that the state would give you, let's say, $100 a year just for going along with the program, wouldn't you do it? Being surveillance. Yeah, like we can watch you.
Was spied on for $100 a year? No.
Well, I mean, they're going to do it anyway. So why don't you make $100 off it?
Well,
Just
Okay.
sell yourself, Jeff. That's
yeah,
the question.
I would take their $100, but of course, if they were going to do it anyway. But you said, would I sell out for $100? And then you said, well, they're going to do it anyway. So you kind of move
Aren't they going to? I mean, like
goalpost.
you were saying, what is wrong with cameras in public places? I mean, to watch you. We're all part of the community. So what's wrong with it?
I don't know that there's anything wrong with cameras in public places. It's what they do with them. I was talking about what they do with them with the speed cameras. I wasn't really, whether or not they have a camera there. I'm not that really concerned about it.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. I mean, would you guys sell any of your intimacy, like a hooker does?
Well, if it's like a
How
hooker,
intimate are we getting here?
What kind of question
Someone
is that?
actually, it's actually
I'm
a
behind.
virgin on the net that sold her pussy for $700,000.
Sure. You sell your intimacy like a hooker.
Is that the
because
whole
they're-
pussy and nothing but the pussy? What am I getting here?
I don't know.
700K,
I
dude?
don't know the details. Sorry.
I think it
Because
was to an
She
old
just
guy.
sold it. She was like, "Here,
Well,
my
that's-
vagina is yours now for 700K." Is that how it happened?
Well,
That-
I think no, she sold literally her virginity, wasn't it?
oh, I think I heard that one.
Yeah, I think it was
I
her
didn't-
virginity.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's her right. I'm more concerned when people take than what they may offer us, and if somebody wanted to sell my privacy or they wanted to make a reality show about my life, maybe they could offer me enough money to do that. Maybe I would
All right.
accept it. But I would say they would have to offer that to me. They can't just put cameras in my house and just assume that it's okay with me.
Traditionally, our society frowns upon prostitution. That we look at prostitutes as lower class individuals.
Yeah,
for what they do. They're selling of their intimacy.
I don't look at prostitutes. I don't look at anybody selling a service in that way.
Well, I mean, we don't exalt them in our society, do we? People that sell their intimacy?
We don't have any monuments to them or anything like that I know of.
I think since it's
Although
so,
I would rather have.
I will admit that since it's so unsocial, and I'm against slut shaming.
Such
But
shaming.
I think since it's so against societal norms, it only appeals to a good majority of people who are insecure. I'm not going to say all. I'm not trying to generalize here, but I just wanted to spit that out there.
Well, I have I mean personally, if there's a demand for these kind of services and there are sex workers out there, I wouldn't demean them based on that. They're providing a service. They're providing something.
Oh, sure. The thing is that we don't exalt them. You understand this, of course, right? We do not exalt people that sell their intimacy.
Hey,
our
look!
society.
The girl that made $700K, I would exalt her any day. I mean,
I know.
if
The smart
I could go back, in time and sell myself for that much, for my virginity for that much, I probably would very much consider that shit.
But wouldn't you? Okay,
Well,
that's a very good point.
I sometimes think we should exalt people who serve customers peacefully, as opposed to politicians who start wars. I live near Washington D.C. and there's all kinds of monuments for people who were engaged in mass murder. So I actually would rather see a statue of a prostitute down in Washington D.C. than I would of FDR or some kind of war criminal like that.
Okay.
So I don't think it's such a bad idea, or Bill Gates or somebody who's done things to make the world a better place rather than kill people and destroy property in mass. So I don't know. I don't. Maybe a sex worker monument would be a good idea in light of all the other monuments that are.
Anyone before I ask the obvious question?
Yeah, I wanted to put a small bit in there on this whole selling your privacy thing. I think you're wrong, and I'll just give examples of it.
Okay.
Reality TV shows. People idolize people that sell their privacy.
Okay. Well, that's a fairly new phenomenon. Wouldn't you agree? Reality TV in the 80s.
Before reality TV, we had game shows.
Well, that's not as intimate as reality TV.
I kind of have to disagree because aside from reality TV, we have celebrities, right? And when we
Right.
crave to know like the lives of celebrities, right? Well, I don't.
We
But
always say they're
people do.
public people.
Right. So we want to know like what's the everyday life of the celebrity. Well, I'm sure there have been celebrities since pretty much the beginning of time. There's always been kings and queens and royalty and like the tribe leader and everyone. I'm sure there's always been that.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
What I'm trying to say is,
Yeah.
the mindset in America, are we going towards, selling out?
Selling out to what?
Hey, sell it, man. If it has a price, sell it.
What do you
Hey,
mean?
Eve, you wanted $750,000 for it? Here it is.
It just depends on what it is and what's being considered. I
Okay.
think as far as intercourse, it would depend on how someone values it. If they value it as far as something that they feel should only be shared with someone that they truly connect with and truly have some kind of real intimacy and relationship with, then it's going to conflict with them to consider just selling themselves out to someone. But if someone looks at intercourse as something that's just instinct or just pleasurable, and it doesn't matter what type of connection they have, then they're not gonna have any confliction about doing so. I don't think they're gonna have less conviction anyway.
All right. That type of individual, would you think our society should start exalting them?
I think we should start.
Sellouts?
I think we should start accepting people for who they are. Now I think that there's a disclaimer here. We should definitely, if they're harming other people, we should definitely be against such things. But if they're not harming people, and they see things differently, we should
What's
reject.
harm? What's harm? Some people would think selling your virginity would be considered harmful to a child. What's your definition
To
of
a
harm?
child. Nobody's talking about a child. What the fuck do you mean?
Yeah, I think we're talking about consenting adults here.
Yeah.
So, like,
I'm pretty sure
if
the
you're
woman.
18,
No, I think the woman was actually 21 or something.
would you
she
want your kid to do that? Like, I wouldn't want my daughter.
My
If my
kid,
daughter.
by the time my children are 18, I hope to have raised them properly to be able to make their own decisions, and to be able to do it with the least regrets as possible.
What does it even matter what you think about what you would want your 18-year-old daughter to do?
Exactly.
I mean, it's up to her at that point.
I know, but like, I wouldn't do it, and like the way that I would kind of I base my morality, like how I would teach my children how to act, and like.
What if your children are not monogamous? Let me ask you that. What if they are polyamorous?
That's their choice. I would leave that choice up to my daughter, but I don't think that I would approve of it. Let's say, but I would I would allow the choice to be theirs.
What's
Okay, then
the question?
let's contrast that and say, what if your children ended up where they do not see intercourse the same way as you do?
That's fine, but I would still, just for me, I would still feel bad, but I wouldn't allow it to affect my decision. And letting her do what she wants.
What's the question? And the question is, should society? Is that what we're still talking about?
I don't know. I still would feel bad about that, even though I would accept it as a part of society.
Yeah, there are certain things we wouldn't want for our own children, but they wouldn't necessarily be.
But that's the thing. If it goes against what they want, I mean, there's a conflict there.
Right. They're sovereign beings, and we wouldn't celebrate all of their choices, but I don't know. I would say if somebody had a really successful business that was selling services that people wanted to buy, that is as good an excuse to have a monument as any other. So I don't know. I certainly, given who people in the U.S. now revere, people who are starting wars and doing things against their oath of office and all this other thing. So I don't think it would be so terrible to have a statue for a sex worker and honor them if they serve their customers admirably and all of that. So
Well, suppose they didn't. We just like the amount of money they made. She
Wait a minute.
broke all the records for making money for being a whore. So yeah, let's build that statue.
making money is not as making money in a marketplace means they satisfied their customers and did well by their customers. So I don't know.
She even did like child porn, but she made a lot of money. So let's build a freaking.
Well, when you're including that
Yeah, we weren't really talking about child porn. So
No. Well, the thing is this, Jeff. I mean, there's a reason that our society does not exalt people that sell their intimacy and their
because
privacy.
of why do you think that reason is? Please tell
The
me.
reason is it's distasteful for somebody to come with a price like that.
Give your justification for that. Why?
Well, I mean, just the experience. The justification is we don't have any statues of whores in our society. In fact, whores are looking.
Okay, so your justification is based on society?
I'm not saying
That's not a good justification at
The
all.
word justification.
Society burned witches too, so hopefully society isn't.
But the thing is, like, whores and witches have been around at the same time. We've gotten over witches. We'll never get over whores.
Oh wait,
there wasn't any such thing as witches.
People like you may not, but
I'm just listen to me. I'm just presenting the other end of the argument. Please do not characterize me.
There isn't no other end because you didn't give an argument. All you said was so it's not socially acceptable.
I'm giving you the other end of why our society do not exalt people that sell their privacy and their intimacy.
Actually, you haven't given
you just said they didn't. You didn't give any reason.
Yeah, you did not give a reason.
Right.
Well, okay. The reason that they don't is because it's abhorrent to our society for people to come with a price like that.
Okay, that's circular.
That's not a reason. That's
it's not. No, we have a name. We call it selling out. We do not like sellout.
No, Bunto. Can I bring up?
Don't like sellout. So someone who sells their voices, as far as singing.
Well, no. I'm specifically. This is a good point you bring up, Eve. It's specifically for privacy and intimacy. Go ahead, Char.
I wanted to give a personal example after whoever goes.
Well, let me just add this one. Okay, have you seen Firefly, the series?
I saw the first show. Is it a good one?
You should watch the entire series. It's really good. It's only 12 episodes and it's amazing. But it's a really good example of how whores are actually exalted.
Exalted.
Oh, right. Yes, I've seen enough of it to know that is the case. Yes.
That is the case. You should probably watch it.
Woot woot. No.
Yeah, it's a really good show, and you might really like that aspect of it because it gives you a whole.
Oh, I'm sure I will. But I just want to tell all our audiences and all our participants, my duty is to bring up the other end of the argument. Even as abhorrent as it might sound, it's just for the benefit of a balanced conversation.
No, although yes, but in fairness to say, oh, society just doesn't like this. That's really not bringing.
Okay, well, let me show you.
Kind of an argument.
Well, let me show you. Okay, I can stand on that argument because I know there's no place in America where we exalt prostitutes. Maybe New Orleans. I take that back. It just jumped into my mind. Maybe New Orleans because of the the nostalgia of having prostitution.
We're talking about should America exalt some prostitutes?
Okay, should.
It's not controversial that they're not doing that. Obviously, I can't certainly point to a statue of a prostitute anywhere around where I live, and I'm sure that's not the case. But I don't. I think anybody who provides a service that other people want to buy is doing
I completely
a societal good.
But let me give you an example, Jeff. Let's say Obama comes on TV tomorrow with this whore. I mean, people will look down upon that. It would not look as something congruent with the values of our society.
Well, my interest isn't what society does now, but my interest is what they should do, and they shouldn't. I think
fine.
They should look,
I'll give you that much, but I'm just demonstrating that
down on them
people that sell out are not exalted in our society.
I got a personal example from my own personal life that says that's not true. Okay. When I was stationed in Fort Hood, Texas, for a year and a half, and times I had women pay me for sex. And it happened in such a way that my entire unit found out about it. And I had nothing but compliments. My fellow soldiers fucking exalted the hell out of me.
All right.
There you
But
go.
I'm just talking in the
So where's your monument? Where's your statue?
There'll always be outliers.
It's coming.
But if, let's say, Barack Obama came tomorrow with his favorite prostitute on national TV and said, "This is my all-time hoe," it would not be looked on as something that fit within America's family values. Can you all follow that?
Well, of all the things he's done, I would probably look at him more favorably for that than most anything else. But that aside, no, you're right. Most Americans would
So
be
anyway,
shocked
let me
about that.
ask you this, guys. Should we start going towards whorethink? Start exalting people that sell their privacy and their intimacy? I think Jeff is a positive for that.
Well, in comparison to the other things that are honored, I don't know that I would. I'm not really much of a symbol-minded person, as George Carlin says. So I don't necessarily think anybody should have a statue, but
Well, wouldn't that be exalting something because of a need for money? Like, it's just an occupation. So, like, if we didn't have money, would there be whoring?
Well, there's always money. It's just not called money. There's resources. There's power. Humans are, we're
Trade.
we're going to fight over everything.
Trading commodities. I mean, that was prior to the monetary system.
right.
Well,
The first thing you could consider currency for actual complex human civilization was water.
water. Okay, well, let's say this. We should start taking prostitution seriously in our country and regulate it.
I would agree.
No, we should just legalize it. I don't think it needs to be regulated.
Well, I think that it requires regulation after being legalized because, I mean, it does need regulation because if it's not regulated and if it's not legalized, they kind of go hand in hand.
You need
Well,
to regulate for health
the
reasons.
market can
For
regulate.
health reasons, right? For health reasons.
And safety of the prostitutes too.
Well, if you have private prostitution, then people will want to use the ones that are the safest and healthiest, so you don't need government regulation.
Well, we shouldn't wait until people get an STD to say, okay, that one's not safe. We should be regulating it to make sure they are safe.
Yeah, but you don't need to wait because there will be a market as soon as they would be legalized. People would have a concern about which one is safe, and
They would only know which one was safe and which one isn't based upon outcomes.
well, yeah, and you would want and that would be an incentive for a firm to be the tester of prostitution, of firms. So you could have private accreditation of firms. You don't need to involve the government.
Of course, your whole libertarian view has to come.
No. Can I put in the benefits of legalized prostitution? Because this is a known. Other countries have legal prostitution, and it's proven that there's less rape, there's less STDs, whatnot. There's more safe.
Of course, yeah.
And the American case study, because I forget what state it was, and this was like just a couple years ago.
Nevada.
No, not Nevada. This was, I think it was Maine or something, but the legislation accidentally made indoor prostitution legal in the state.
Nice.
And nobody knew about it, right? For about 3 years, nobody knew about it, and a judge reviewed all the laws, and he's like, hey, it's legal for prostitution now. And once everybody knew about it, the rape rates dropped through the floor when everybody knew about it.
So there's benefits of having a regulated prostitution, right? So America chooses the wise course and starts legalizes prostitution and starts regulating it for the safety of the prostitutes, correct?
Yeah.
Now,
Well, the safety of
and the customers.
let me tell you,
And the customers, yeah.
very good. So let me tell you what type of prostitutes I like. I like the ones that look like 15-year-old boys, and the closer they are to child porn. Is the type of, and so the government's going to go ahead and accommodate my, likes, my preference.
The government?
Really? Yeah, because they're the ones that are regulating prostitution, correct?
No,
or are they going to stop me in my tracks, telling me that I'm a pervert for wanting to
that's not my
young underage-looking prostitutes?
It would not. The government regulating prostitution would have no bearing on the attractiveness or the looks of the
Right.
prostitutes themselves.
So you think our churches might have a kind of objection to that? For
Fuck
Bunto
the
trying?
church.
Who cares?
Oh, okay. Our
Churches
moral.
being objectional to sexual behavior makes me want to laugh, dude.
Okay, but I like would the morality in our
Right.
country go down?
The
if we had
churches
people like
objected
that?
gambling, and
No,
they
I don't
objected
think it
all
would go
kinds of
down.
things.
I think that it would increase because people wouldn't be. Well, first of all, there's crimes involved with prostitution. If it was legalized, those crimes would be lessened.
Yeah.
That's a moral issue to consider as well. And people are going to go to prostitutes regardless if it's illegal or legal.
So okay, your next door neighbors bringing home. They look like they obviously must be adult men, but they look like young kids, 15-year-old boys, and that don't bother you?
Oh yeah, I'd call the cops and make sure they were legit.
Okay, well, I mean, he's within his right, isn't he, Jeff? I mean, legalized prostitution.
What are you talking about? 15-year-old boys.
I mean, it looks like 15-year-old boys. I mean, that's his flavor of prostitute that he likes. I mean, you guys, you want to legalize prostitution, but there's. Oh no, can I please
Wait a minute.
finish?
You're saying that person is only gonna have that attraction if prostitution was legalized?
No, this is what I'm saying. Please, may I finish?
How do you know that he's going to have
May
sex
I
with him?
finish, please? I'm just asking.
You've been talking constantly. How do you know he's going to have sex with these?
Well, it is
these
his
kids
hangout.
anyway.
It doesn't even that matter. What I'm trying to let me finish my point. My point is, if we do legalize prostitution, there's a lot of ugliness that comes with that. Are we ready to accommodate the ugliness that comes with legalized prostitution? That's all my point is.
Well, what we have to consider is the pros and cons and which outweighs the other. And the pros outweighs the cons.
Well, and also the ugliness in a lot of cases comes from the fact that it's only legal or it's only tolerated in very small localized areas. So when you spread it out, it becomes rather diffuse, and it may be like a place in a strip center or whatever. Whereas now it's confined to certain areas where it's tolerated, and if you spread it out, it's going to be undetectable, just like anything else. So the reason why it's so ugly and concentrated is because it's relegated to or tolerated in certain very narrow areas and particular cities. So if it's everywhere, then it's pretty diffuse and not an issue.
If you legalize it and you don't have to hide it, it could actually become classy.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead, Lou.
A hypothetical here, and this is just a hypothetical, so don't put a bunch of weight behind this.
Don't put the Bunto treatment on him, please.
Okay, right now, well, globally, but especially here in America and a few other locations, we have a huge problem with pedophile priests.
Okay.
So, if prostitution was legal and a pedophile could go and pay an 18-year-old that looked like they were 13 to fuck legally, wouldn't you think that would be a good thing than them raping little boys?
Obviously, it would be a good thing, but what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of ugliness. I mean, the first thing that the churches and the moral leaders will say is, now you've gone ahead and sanctioned this sort of behavior. Even though he is a pedophile priest and he is with somebody over age, you're still sanctioning it. See what I mean?
They say that about gambling too.
Yeah, but here's the problem with the church. The church and the mafia is the biggest unholy alliance in the history of human history. The church wants everything illegal for bullshit, mythical, moral, freaking bullshit reasons. And guess what? The mafia supports the church because everything that becomes illegal, the mafia makes money off of.
Anyone?
I just hate the church.
No, I mean, I don't really care what the church says. The church does not have to engage in prostitution. Nobody's required to do any of these things. It's just about what we should tolerate and what is a victimless crime. And prostitution is a victimless crime to the extent that consenting adults engage in it.
Okay. One thing that prostitution does is lock people in at a certain social level. They come up in the poor neighborhoods. There's just no opportunity for education or betterment, so they become prostitutes. So once
That's not
we.
necessarily true.
Oh,
What you're
yeah.
doing is you're adding a you're using a stereotype to generalize. A lot of prostitutes and even strippers come from women that are going to college and they're trying to support their college
Right.
education. So
You bring up a good point, Eve. Like, do you think they want to do that?
I think that if it was more socially acceptable, they wouldn't feel so shitty about doing that.
And it's better than getting a government student loan that they'll be strapped
Oh
with
my God, Eric, are you there?
No.
for decades on end.
What's happening? What
Here's the
happened?
thing about strippers.
What I miss?
We're talking about strippers.
Oh yeah. Good.
I don't know what you're doing, Eric. but
Hang
yeah.
out after dark.
Yeah. So with college, like somebody already mentioned it, you can get college loans, and there are still grants out there, and there's scholarships. You can make it through college on a part-time job if you have a shitload of scholarships and grants and college loans. It's not necessary to be a stripper. These girls are not doing it because they have to. They're doing it because they make $5,000 a night.
Well, I think you're
Yeah,
generalizing.
but wait a minute. That also depends on circumstantial things. You can't just get a scholarship. I can't just go get a scholarship. A scholarship is dependable based upon evidence of GPAs in the past and things like that. So for someone like me that is a single mother that hasn't even been in high school for years, and I dropped out of high school, I have a GED. I don't get scholarships. I've applied for them. I haven't gotten any. Okay, I get grants. I do get grants, but it's only because I'm a single mother. That's it. There's women out there. I'm sure they can get. I'm not saying they won't get any grants, but
Right.
it's not necessarily going to cover all of their funds. That's the issue.
Okay, but can we get more to my point as far as it locking in people at a certain social level? Doesn't it? Prostitution. I mean, are
We
people from affluent
why
homes?
why do we
Well,
need to stay in
under the
that
current
social
system,
construct?
well,
We
hold
should
on.
be breaking certain social constructs.
Yeah.
Under the current system, yes, it's the black market, and it does tend towards keeping people downward as far as their social construct. But if we made it legitimate, if it was not prohibited, then there would be no reason why people could be confined
Okay.
to some social stratus.
So
because
once
of
we
this.
legalize prostitution, should we give them an avenue for higher education and betterment? Should the state give
What
them?
do you mean by no?
Oh, once they register as a prostitute, then we say, hey, we could give
Hey,
you
I'm all for us actually making the educational system more available and more accessible.
To everybody. Like, you don't have to be a prostitute for that.
Well,
What is it? Is it Sweden
no,
or Switzerland that actually pays people to go to college?
Yeah.
Here's my thing on school. Education solves all the world's problems. If you get the global population's education level up high enough, overpopulation ends as a problem. Every single political problem you can think of goes away once everybody's educated. So I think education should be merit-based for everybody, meaning everybody can go to school to maximize whatever it is their potential is. If their maximum potential is getting a mechanic certificate, so be it, whatever. But I
I'm
don't
glad
think,
you added that maximal potential. That's great
Yeah.
because I was going to say there's some gray areas there too.
but yeah.
Well, I
You
think
As far
that's
as
how they
someone's
do it.
capability.
think
But you
that's
did great
actually-
saying that.
Isn't
ahead,
that how
Sean,
they do
sorry.
it in Germany or Switzerland or something? That's actually how they do it. Like
A lot
anyone can go to school, but most people, like it depends. Like some people go to like university, other people go to art college, other people go to trade school, but everyone can go and it's paid.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah,
anybody
that's something we have.
Anybody could afford to go to school if we didn't have student loans and things that raise the demand to the point where
No.
it becomes necessary to have these things. But let's legalize prostitution and
Wait a minute, I have a problem with
prostitutes.
what you just stated, though, Jeff. You said anybody can go to school as long as there's not school student
Correct.
loan
Yes.
problems. Well,
Yeah, the student loans raise the price. It
okay,
raises
but even if
demand and it raises the cost of education.
I understand, but even if with any cost, you can't say that when there's people in poverty and Lou raised. Wait a minute, let me finish.
Most people could
Wait a minute, let me
go to
finish,
school.
Jeff, please. Let me finish, please. Lou raised a great point. A lot of we could see the correlation between poverty-stricken areas and undereducation. There's a correlation there. They can't just poverty-stricken people can't just afford the normal school price. Okay, they can't afford that shit.
Yeah, because of student loans, yes, because the
No,
cost
I'm saying even without student loans, they still
No,
wouldn't
well,
be able to afford it.
if the few people who couldn't afford it could easily be subsidized by charity by people who could easily afford to supplement it, but now it's out of the reach of everybody because when you flood the market with student loan money, it raises demand and raises prices.
God damn,
I know you want to snicker and think it's different and that it's just about but this is economics. No, it's economics.
Fucked.
Yeah, reality is a pain in the ass. Reality is a pain in the ass sometimes, but this is what raises prices. I'm
The
sorry.
libertarian view is far from reality.
Hey, Eve, let me.
It's far from the reality that you want, but it's
okay.
not far from economic
bring it down
reality.
a
No, it's
notch.
far from the
Well,
actual reality.
So as a Canadian, I can say that education's pretty cheap here. Like, not cheap, it's affordable. So if you want to go to university, you can probably afford to do it. You might have some loans, but you can probably pay them off the first year of working pretty easily. Like, it's not that bad here, and I don't know why that is. So we still have student loans here in Canada.
I'm actually living off of my student loans right now. Me and my family are living off of my
in the
student
U.S., I don't know if you read about this, but people are getting out of school. There are no jobs in the U.S. They have a house payment but no house. They have no job, and they're stuck paying these loans, and you can't even go bankrupt from them.
I've got it in my program to where they actually find me employment once I graduate.
Okay. Let me. Can I address the economics on this?
I don't think. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I have, but go ahead. You can do so too.
Okay. Good. Okay. This is just facts. It's not opinion. It's not theory. This is facts. You can check.
Okay.
You can. Let me.
Well, nothing like loading.
Let me finish. Yeah.
This is just fact. It's not opinion. You can't. This.
Well, you don't even know what it is yet.
Okay. Go ahead.
Stop being rude. Okay.
Okay.
And if you want to fact check me, go to the CBO. Okay. But here's the fact: every single dollar the government spends on education is multiplied by 7 back into the economy. Every dollar you put into education, you get $7 out. Then that's just a fact. So sending more people to school actually is good for your economy.
Do you have a link for that or something?
I just told you, go to the CBO.
No, don't. I mean,
we're here in a chat, and no, I don't.
That goes completely against.
I mean, that's a really bold claim.
Hold on.
Really,
that goes completely against Jeff's libertarian view, where the complete government system is absolutely flawed.
I'm glad to accept it. Can you point me to this? Really? I'll go to the busy myself on the website. Where is? Can you just? That's a pretty bold claim. Can you just?
Jeff, where are we right now?
Can you take 5 seconds?
Where are we? Where are we?
Well, we'll leave it there. Okay, guys, let me ask you this. Okay. Let me put you this. Okay, so we legalize prostitution, right? And we give them educational opportunities, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, we do that, right? So I'm a poor person and I have $2, and they got to become prostitutes, right? Because I want them to go to college.
It depends. Are you going to pay for it?
Well, no, because I know since they're whores, they're going to get a cheaper.
It doesn't mean they become prostitutes. I mean, they have other options, but they might end up taking that option since it's something that pays very good money.
Okay, we've looked at the other options, Eve, and for my two, beautiful young daughters, it's better for them to become whores because they get a cheaper rate to go to college. So, that's the way
Um,
things work in America,
Um,
right?
okay.
Bunto, I see what your point you're trying to make, but you're not looking at all the factors. You said legalize prostitution and send everybody to school. Those are two different policy changes.
Okay.
So when everybody has the right and opportunity to go to school, they don't have to be a prostitute anymore. What
All
that
right.
means
Yep.
is people that choose to be a prostitute will get paid better because there's going to be less prostitutes and drive up the demand for the prostitutes that there is, which means their income would go up.
Would you really want your prostitutes to know about the theory of relativity? That's really what it boils down to.
Yeah,
Wait,
I
wait,
want my
wait a minute. Wait a minute.
educated.
Why wouldn't you want to? What's that have to do with it?
I'm just trying to be funny.
No, it's just funny,
But what does that mean though?
it means I want to have post-coital physics conversations.
Maybe I didn't get it.
You're
Maybe it
funny.
goes over my head.
I think they're saying they like their prostitutes to be stupid.
That was the intimate, but he meant it in a jovial, levity manner.
It was a joke.
It was a joke.
Yeah.
Okay, but the thing is, gang, if our
Sorry,
society
it's
is to
on my
change
head.
to that sort of egalitarian, everybody goes, we're going to have situations where, what's your two daughters doing? Well, they're going to be horned because I got to send them to college. See what I mean? There's that sort of ugliness
I
to
think
things.
that's silly. No, I think it's silly for you to say that they're just going to resort to that just because.
Well, Eve, can you understand? That's like human nature. It's like if they can get the opportunity to better
But if they
themselves
did, I
as
don't
a
think that you should
prostitute.
reject them for it.
Well, I'm not going to reject them. They're my own blood. But I'm telling you, in a society that is sort of like selling out, we're going to have to change our mindset to where we can exalt people that sell their privacy and
It's
intimacy.
not about exalting. It's about accepting people for
Yes,
the way
it is accepted.
the way they are. Hold on. Because as I said, if there wasn't such a social stigma, then these girls probably would not walk away feeling shitty like they do.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to say all of them. Some of them might still walk away feeling like a piece of property or a piece of shit, and it might affect their insecurities or their self-esteem. Especially if they see men kind of hounding at them, they might end up like that. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to say that I think if the social overall social aspect and social viewpoint wasn't just to dog these people, I think that they would at least have a little bit of better self-esteem in the society they live in.
Go ahead, Lou.
Okay, I want to address Jeff's double straw man from one link he just posted there.
Well, I asked you for a link, and I just Googled it myself.
Yeah, you let a person finish when they're talking. You can
Okay.
butt me.
No, you're like, oh, Jeff found this. So you're like, oh, Jeff, busy yourself. Go Google away, and this is the first thing I found. So you give me your link, which you haven't done yet, and I will comment on it.
Jeff, okay, are you done talking?
Yes.
Are you done interrupting? Okay. You might want to mute yourself so you don't interrupt accidentally because you seem to have a habit of that.
I'll try to control myself.
Okay, thank you. Okay. That's a straw man because what I am talking about is not student loans. I said double straw mans, which means I have 2 points to make, Jeff. So don't interrupt after I get done with the first one. I'm talking about free education for all, not student loans. That's the first straw man. Second straw man. The government in America is not in the business of student loans. The government has all the government does is gives a check to the fucking banks, and the banks are responsible for collecting student loans. That banks, private banks, administer everything. Your libertarian philosophy is what's fucking up the government right now with education.
Banks are mostly government run things, so they're hardly libertarian. Money
they're
in bank,
private organizations.
Well,
They
I think the
own
libertarian
money in banking in the U.S. is not free market.
the problem with the libertarian view is they see the entire system as flawed instead of seeing some of the benefits of the system and seeing the parts that are actually flawed.
I'm open to the benefits. Just tell me what they are, or give me the link
Well,
and
I think we discussed
show
them
me.
earlier,
Yeah,
like regarding surveillance,
yeah.
for instance.
Really, we established that surveillance is working really well for law enforcement and
No,
justice.
we established that it would be. Oh wow, never mind.
Yeah,
No,
never
we
mind.
actually have
Evidently, that point went over.
I'm sorry, Eve.
Yeah.
Interrupt.
The point that where surveillance is working well for American citizens didn't go over my head.
There's parts of surveillance that are working well. Are you saying that that there's not benefits to any surveillance?
Look at the crime rate decrease in the past 30 years.
No, if you have a business, you should put cameras out and catch robbers who, people who are trying to break into your house and all that. But
yeah, it reduces crime. The surveillance in public areas have reduced crime, or has at least, I won't say reduced crime, but it has at least caught the criminals involved. And I think that's important.
Yeah, in some cases, I don't know. I saw some surveillance thing on. They're like, "Can you identify this guy?" And it's some fat guy with something over his head.
Can I be honest with you?
It's like.
I don't think that the libertarian view works in such a huge society. It might work in a village type of society. It might work in a small tribal type of society.
I would argue the opposite. It actually works better in complex societies because central planning is actually less effective with greater complexity than it is with smaller societies. So I would
I would disagree.
I think the trend would be actually inverse from what you're saying.
Just as far as what I've heard from the libertarian view, it seems like a fantasy land that's only capable of happening within a small society.
No, it's actually quite the opposite. It's actually pointing out for example, like in the Soviet Russia, which was an exemplar of central planning over a very large society, you had mass starvation, and the reason was there was no decentralization. There were no price mechanisms. There was no spontaneous order in the pricing system, so people didn't know what to charge for
Jeff,
things.
why doesn't that happen?
And it caused mass starvation.
I know you keep picking out the flaws in certain government systems.
Well, mass starvation is not just nitpicking.
If I could say this, but when you present your view of how the government should operate, there's flaws there as well.
And in this case, though, mass starvation is not just nitpicking. It's pretty serious.
The major flaw with your libertarian view is it is a Darwinianism view. Those who are poor and those who are down and out, they will not make it. Those who are disabled, those who have mental problems. Oh yes. I'm sorry.
No. People in those states do far poorer under a centrally planned Marxist kind of system than they would in a free system. They can be employed in a free system. They can.
My severely autistic son can be employed? No, not in the condition he's in right now. Absolutely not. He cannot be employed.
How would he be employed in a Marxist system?
He cannot even goddamn function in his own home.
How would he function in a Marxist system?
Oh, okay. Let me. Can I just Jeff again?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, I'm asking Eve because she was the one talking. I don't want to.
Oh. I'm sorry. What was the question?
I seen if I can address Jeff again. I didn't want to interrupt.
Sure.
Oh no, go ahead. I was just trying to state my libertarian hatrism there.
I can trash libertarian philosophy from every single point you want to bring up about libertarianism.
Well, I actually agree with them on some points, but not all.
Well, I agree with you where it works for small groups of people, but I want to address his thing where he was talking about how libertarian was somehow responsible for solving starving people or something like that. Is that what you were trying to say?
The Industrial Revolution and economic prosperity in general, to the extent that it was free, has made us. We actually have an abundance of food. Due to the extent to which the market in food is free.
Okay.
Yeah, we have great abundance of things that are generally free. The computer business is free. That's why we're talking we're talking for free for hours on end to people all over the country on Google Plus because it's free. It's largely free.
Okay.
And that's yes, we do have great abundance
I pay
in
for my
areas
internet service.
Let me
very very low cost.
on this
I mean,
starvation
no.
issue.
No, it's not compared to my living cost.
Let me
Well,
take care
hold on. Okay, I do have to address that because when I was a kid, just a short time ago, a few decades ago, we were just talking about this today. A friend of mine moved away when I was in the second grade, and I was mourning. I was up all night because I knew I would never see that guy again, ever. I would never talk to that person again. He was my best friend, and he moved away. And the reason I couldn't talk to him is because long-distance telephone was the only thing we had, and there was a government monopoly on it, and my parents wouldn't let me make phone calls because it was so fucking expensive. And that's the difference. So you say now it's like, oh, it's expensive, I pay for cable or whatever, but we can talk to people all over the world. We can stay connected.
Okay, but Jeff,
I know people.
Jeff, you're not looking at the full circumstance
Well,
here.
you're not looking.
The reason I even pay for my fucking internet is because I have to have it to go to school, or else I would have to eliminate it as a priority in my family.
But it is dirt cheap compared to.
No, it is not.
To what communications?
As I just stated, please let me finish.
You couldn't
please let me finish.
Okay.
As I just stated earlier, I'm living off of my student loans. That is what I'm living off of. My son receives.
Living off of your student loans?
Yes, my son receives a SSI check every month, but it doesn't cover our bills. It does not cover that shit. Okay, my internet has to be supplied because I have to go to school on the internet. That's what I'm going to school over, is the internet. And the internet takes a big chunk of my fucking money.
40 years ago, you couldn't even make 40 years ago, you couldn't even make a phone call.
Hey, hold on. Can I fucking finish?
Yeah, you can.
$160. Okay, to me, to you, it may not seem a lot. To me, it is a lot.
I get it. No, I get it.
Okay, no, I mean,
but look what you get for that 160.
Why are you saying that it's not that much? Because to me, it depends on the person and the situation they're in.
Because you couldn't have gotten
lot.
You couldn't have gotten the same thing for $1,060.
I am
30
someone
or 40
who is
years
in
ago.
poverty. I don't care. I'm someone who is in poverty and who is poor. It is a lot of money.
I get that, but I'm telling you, you are a lot wealthier now with what you're making than you would have been 30 or 40 years ago, thanks to free enterprise.
I'm not making a goddamn thing. I'm getting student loans, which is, you know.
I don't know if you want to have just. I mean, I get it. I'm sorry, and I
No,
feel,
you don't have to be sorry, okay? You know,
I think that's what you're going for, but
I'm the one that chose
of,
to have my children at a certain age. I take that responsibility, okay?
Okay, but in terms of economically speaking, you could not have had anything. You could not even have dreamed of being able to communicate with people across the world for such a small sum of money.
Who is this system supposed to benefit?
It's only a small sum of money to you.
It benefits you and the people who provide it.
But my point is it's only a small amount of money to you, not to everybody else.
It would be a significant amount of money. My internet bill is a significant amount of money to me too. If that makes you feel better. But you're right.
I'm just saying it's not that the way that you see things is not how everybody else experiences them.
I'm telling you, you would not.
My internet bill is not small to me.
I get that, but it's not what that's not the point I was making. I was talking about 10 years ago. You couldn't have paid 10 times what you're paying now and gotten what you're now getting, and you're getting that because of free enterprise. You're not getting that because of government favors.
Okay.
Really?
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay, can I bring some facts to the table here?
I'm sorry if I misunderstood somewhere. Go ahead.
I need to bring some facts to the table here. Jeff, again, I'm going to make 2 points, so you can rebut when I'm done. Just be patient, okay? Okay. First point. People today are making less money than they were 10 years ago. Fact. the buying power of the dollar is decreasing, wages are stagnant, and working class people that used to be considered middle class are now the working poor. So everybody in America, except for the top 1%, is making less money today than they were yesterday. That's point one. Okay?
I would. That's probably true. Yeah.
Point two, coming up. History. We know what happens under libertarian policies because America was a libertarian nation from day one when it was founded. No, don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt, Jeff.
All right, I'm sorry.
Okay?
Go ahead.
New York. No regulation at all. There was no social safety net. There was no government food. There was no food stamps.
When?
And what New York had was corpses on the fucking streets.
When was this?
Don't talk until I'm done.
No, I'm just asking you a question. When was this? When are you talking about? Now? 10 years ago? 100 years ago?
No, I'm talking about pre-1920s.
Okay.
1920s and earlier. Okay. The reason we have food stamps, the reason we have Social Security, the reason we have welfare and all of these social safety programs is because people got tired of stepping over dead bodies on the streets. So your libertarian philosophy has been debunked. We already know what happens under laissez-faire capitalism. We know
Can I
what
also say,
regulate.
if I can add to that, Lou, because let me also bring up the inner circles that I brought up earlier. The libertarians have this view that if you eliminate government, there'll still be charity. People will still be charitable. They'll still give. Bull fucking shit.
Yeah.
If they're not obligated to give, they will not. They will only be concerned with their inner circles. I don't blame them. I'm not saying it's wrong for them to be that way. I don't blame them. I'm only going to be concerned about my inner circles as well, and then the outer circles. My first concern is my inner circles.
And I can add one more thing to what you said there. I totally agree with you.
So now that are you done? Can I ask you a question?
No, I'm not done.
Yeah,
and that's the issue. My parents, my family, my sisters, my brothers, they can only go so far with helping me and my child who suffers with autism. They can only go so far. And I can only go so far. I can't take it to certain things that people want me to take it to. People want me to work and don't understand my situation. They don't fucking know. People don't live in my shoes. They don't fucking understand this shit. But they're willing to fucking judge and say, well, if we adopt this libertarian view, then people are going to be, compassionate and give. No, I understand. People are compassionate. We are empathetic. But we're only empathetic to a certain extent, and that extends to our inner circles. That's it. So there's a problem. There's a huge fucking problem. You eliminate the government, the poor people are going to be fucked. Period.
Yeah. Sure. And I just wanted to compliment your thing because, yeah, I totally agree with you on that, Eve. The other problem with charity is detrimental to society. Here's why. Purchasing power. When you buy in bulk, you get to buy more for your money. So when you let charity, when your solution to the problem is charity, what you are doing is screwing people over because you got a church here that has maybe $1,000 a month they're spending, and a church there, maybe they're rich and they got $5,000.
Lou, can I just ask you a question?
The government does it.
Lou, can I just ask you a question? Lou, I just Googled New York City corpses in the street, and I'm not really finding anything. Can you narrow that down to what it is I need to look up to?
Okay, go look up archives of
where the Irish famine happened in the late 1800s.
Okay, so you're talking about like a plague that happened?
No,
there was a potato famine in Ireland, dude, around the turn of the century, and there was an influx of Irish Americans into New York.
So they were coming here and starving in the streets. So that's a failure.
Yes.
So
that was a loss. That was a loss of human life, dude.
So that was libertarianism. That was.
Yes. There was no social safety net at that time.
All these starving people came here and died, and that's a failure. Oh, come on, really? You can do better than that.
You know why they died of starvation?
I'm sure you probably could find a better example of that.
It wasn't just them. It was a lot of other people too.
Do you know
I've I've heard a lot of libertarians. Okay, well, not a lot of libertarians here on Google Plus. You and Aaron. What's the matter? Is this going against your little view that
No, it's just I'm trying to make sense of this, and it's like, oh, all these starving Irish people came here and died.
Is it hard to see outside of your own circumstances and your own view?
No.
Anyways, well, that's
not
how I
hard to
feel.
see that.
When
I'm trying to see that.
When I hear a libertarian, it almost seems as if they're unwilling to put themselves in someone else's shoes and view it from their standpoint.
I was just
because
doing a fact check.
if you're adhering to Ayn Rand or whatever her name is, libertarian stance, then people like it's not just poor people that can work. That's the problem. You guys have. Wait a minute. If I can finish. If I can finish. The libertarians. Hey, hold on.
Okay.
Libertarians seem to have this view that poor people are all poor people are people that can actually work. They're just in circumstances where they don't have work. That's bullshit. Okay, because there are mentally incapable people of working, such as my son. I don't think that he will ever, unless he gets help. I do still have hope. I'm not going to say
I feel bad about your son.
but I don't think that he'll ever reach to the point where he can actually work for his own income. Okay?
Not everybody will.
And not to mention people, older people that mental disabilities, other disabilities. I mean, we've got to consider these things instead of just wrapping poor people up into these lazy motherfuckers.
I'm saying this has to be voluntary.
Hold on, if I can finish.
It just has to be voluntary.
If I can finish.
Well, you've been talking for quite a long time, but go ahead.
When I hear that, no, actually, I just started. When I hear the libertarian view. It's almost as if they have this view that all poor people are just these lazy motherfuckers that are capable of working but just don't.
Well, that's what you want to hear, and I appreciate that. But and I'm still looking for the people on the street that are starving. But you guys talk among yourselves. I have to go for a couple minutes. I'll be right back.
Hold on, I wanted to give you a resource, Jeff, because I have to go too. You like to look stuff up on the internet, so I'm going to give you a resource.
I was trying to follow what you were saying about all these successes and people starving in the street, and I'm really not in the absence of.
Right, you type this down or write it down somewhere, okay?
Put it in the side chat.
I'm giving you a resource.
Okay.
Go to UC Berkeley, their online website, UC Berkeley, California. They podcast a lot of their courses. You can get all kinds of history classes for free.
Okay.
And Jeff, I just want to say no hard feelings. No hard feelings, dude.
No.
Please don't be closed.
I'm just interested in the truth. I really don't.
Don't be closed off to your view of libertarianism being flawed in some way.
I would actually, I would acknowledge that libertarianism does not address a lot of social problems. Libertarianism is a narrow view about how about the proper use of force in society. So I don't dispute that all of these are issues or things that we shouldn't work out, but I'm just saying that using the state to do that is really problematic, and the consequences are real and a lot of times diffuse and counterintuitive. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you shouldn't help people. I'm not saying that people aren't suffering. I'm not saying any of that. And all these caricatures, if you want to make them, that's fine. If you don't look into it, but that's not what I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying that the state is really not the best way to address those issues. And
I disagree with you there. I think this is a place
we're talking
for
about the means. We're not talking about who cares about what or any of those things. I sympathize with you and your son. I have my own problems. I have my own charities that I support. I'm a big brother. I do all these things. I'm about all those things.
I'm not discrediting your character.
That's excellent, guys. Guys, I just want to say thank you for this great night of conversation. All our participants, you were all wonderful. And
no hard feelings, though.
Oh,
I know.
no, indeed. No.
I just want to say, this one was supposed to be
Please.
about junk science and Fringe Hangout. Guess what? I promise you the next one will be about junk science and Fringe. Take care, y'all, and have a good weekend.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah. Likewise. Take